Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sick Flicks. Hopefully everybody can see me and hear me. If you cannot hear me or see me, please tell me because I probably broke something. Can you hear me? Have we got audio? All right, we can hear me. All right. So funny thing. It's been 10 months, I think, or 8 months since I last did one of these. And I was saying the other day that like streaming equipment is kind of like a sports car. You know, you will buy a Ferrari, or so I hear because I don't own one, and we'll park it for the winter and it will sit in your garage for the entire winter and won't be turned on or driven or anything like that. But by the time you get to spring, everything in it has broken, even though nothing has been done to it. And that's kind of my experience with streaming stuff as well. Like every time I turn it on, it's like something is broken. So I was like really sort of nervous all afternoon. I came in here and I set everything up and it kind of worked. It looked like it was working, but you just never know until you actually hit go live if things are working. So thank you all for being here. This has been a long time. I suppose I should probably maybe talk about sort of what has been going on, why I haven't done a live stream in like 8 months or whatever. So yeah, so 2023 was a weird year for me. Started out really great, right? So we basically a year ago today we did Atlanta Comic-Con the first day. It was like my first invite to a con as a creator type thing, and that was super cool. And we had a really good time and met a lot of cool people, and you know, had just like got to meet some fans, got to meet a lot of creators, got to, you know, just hang out and have fun for 3 days. And so we came back home and, you know, I did some more live streams and made a lot more videos and stuff. And then we were going to Tampa Comic-Con in July. And so at the end of July, and I was excited about that because I live near Tampa. So this is like my home con. So we basically, let me pop out the chat because I always miss the chat. Hang on here. See if I can just pop that out over here where I can see it better. There we go. All right. So anyway, back to my long-winded story. We went to that, right? And it was great because it's, you know, like I said, my home con sort of. And I got the Rona. Kevin Wiseman with the $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, Mike. Enjoy the show. Well, I appreciate that because this year has been really tough and I just basically keep making it for you guys. Like if it were just up to me, I'd have probably quit, which we will get to momentarily. But so we went to Tampa Comic-Con and had a great time, except that I came home with the coronavirus, which I had avoided for 3 years. And I got it like pretty good, right? And like I got it for like a good solid 2 weeks of misery, and then I had like a month and a half of where like I would just get randomly like crazy fatigue and headaches and stuff like that. And like if you know me, I work constantly, so I'm not like super lazy, and B, I'm a power lifter, so like nothing keeps me out of the gym except for a month and a half. I basically ended up kind of outside of the gym because I just could not get anything going. Like when I would go out there, it was not worth going, right? So we had that, and then my grandson Sterling, who you may have seen in the Fatal Games video last week, was born in July as well, and he came to visit at the end of July, and of course then I had COVID, so I had to wear a mask and didn't really get to hold him or anything like that the whole time. So that was super exciting. Your newborn grandson is here, your very first grandchild, and you can't really even go near him because you don't want to give him the Black Plague, basically, because he has no immune system. And probably starting him out with that was probably not maybe the best way to build his immune system, right? Yeah, Mr. Spider-Kiss, I do lift. Okay, I'm a dabbler in the powerlifting arts. So we had that, and then like, so it took me just like, I lost like a month of work. Like we kept Sick Flicks going because I had so many things sort of in the can already. Like Jay and I like to work way ahead. And So we had a bunch of stuff there, so I was fine, and I could manage to work like in little spurts, which was great that we had this sort of backlog, because I couldn't like sit and do like 12-hour day writing a script like I did today. I was having to break them up into like, I can do like an hour or two here, an hour or two there, and like try to get into the film them like one at a time instead of doing batches like we usually do. But the downside of that was I was also preparing to launch B-Movie Babylon during that time frame. And my goal with launching B-Movie Babylon was to launch it and to have like 10 episodes in the can, same type thing, so that we could basically have a bunch of them ready, and I could just keep kind of working on them at my own pace and not feel like pressured to put one, like to have to make one every week. And instead that just didn't happen. And I got a little bit antsy about, like not having enough content coming out. And we started putting out B-Movie early. So, oh, Renee, thank you for the beard is the brand at this point. I'm glad it's left. My grandson yanked on it for a month. Yeah, so we launched B-Movie, and in typical Mike Bracken fashion, I go like, I'm going to launch this new project and it's going to be fantastic. And I have a million ideas for how to make it and how to make it cooler. And like, as you make 10, I figure out like Sick Flicks. It took me 10 videos to get to Sick Flicks. And then it took me a couple more to figure out sort of how that show worked. And B-Movie Babylon and Deep Cuts were sort of the same thing. Like I was going to make some and I would refine the process and figure out what the show was as we went. And I did, except that, do you really watch all these movies you review? Yes, I do. But so we were going to, like I was going to keep working on this show and get them out every week. But then what happened was I was kind of having to make it every week, and I was also having to edit it because, Jay was swamped and he was also working for another horror channel in the space, and which was great for him because it was a great opportunity. He's still working with us. He hasn't left or anything like that. But so he couldn't edit them, and they weren't really profitable enough to pay for editing. So I was like, oh, I'll just do them. How hard can it be, right? Because I used to edit this show. I mean, it was terrible, but I did it. And Jay is Jay from Bloodbath and Beyond, Measy. That is the guy who edits all of our videos. Great guy, Jay Bond, fantastic content creator, fantastic editor, just really cool dude. Definitely check out his channels. Bloodbath and Beyond is still around. He's done a reaction channel. Cool guy, really cool guy. One of my best friends. So we launched it, and I'm making it, and like and it did well. It was doing really well, but we got about, I don't know, 5 episodes in, and it was like, I'm just chasing it every week because I have to script it and then film it or record it and then edit it. And it was like, it was taking longer to make than Sick Flicks. And so, which was not the plan. This was supposed to be like an ancillary thing to Sick Flicks. Like we were going to make Sick Flicks as the main show, and B-Movie was something we could make that was simple and a podcast and with some video, and just put it out every week as like a bonus thing. So we could talk about some different movies and I didn't have to write 8 million jokes. And so we made it, and I was editing it, and it kept, in typical Mike Bracken fashion, it gets more complicated every week because I'm like, oh, but this would be cool, or this would be great, or I would love to add this to it, would really take it to the next level. And that's great if you have like a team of editors and writers and things like that who can make that happen. But when I'm trying to write, Sick Flicks every week and that show, and then the editing is just if you've never edited video, it's just super time consuming, pain in the ass process. Measy, you're awesome, man. Well, thank you. You're awesome too. I appreciate that. Hey Chuck, how you doing? So we went and like a lot, because it's a podcast, it's like, oh, it's just supposed to be like, we designed it to be listened to. Like, so it's on YouTube and you can watch it and you can see me, you can see the B-roll, whatever. But like, if you listen to it on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts or wherever, you weren't really missing anything if you didn't watch the video version. So we always tried to create it in a way that like it was to be listened to first. If you watched it on YouTube, great, you got some extra visuals type thing. But that was taking so long, and every week they just kept getting longer. And so we went, like, Jay's like, well, a lot of these podcast channels just put like a animated still image up on their thing, right? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And we saw some nice ones, and we tried that, and like some people got it, and some of you did not. And like, I don't know how many times I had to kind of explain, like, this show is actually a podcast, so it's supposed to be listened to first and foremost. But And again, I get it. If you come to YouTube and you know me from YouTube, you expect a video. I get it. So we kind of saw, like, once we switched that format, it was way easier for me to make those episodes, because like the editing time went down to like less than half, because all I had to do was go through and cut out all my terrible bad takes instead of having to add in a bunch of B-roll and take out all of my terrible bad takes and make pictures and things like that. But the numbers went down, and they didn't go down like terribly, but they did go down, and that like hurt my ego a little bit. Not really, but it was like an alarming thing to like kind of see it go down, because you're like, well, I don't want to, these are a lot of work, and I don't want to make them like if nobody's interested type thing. So, and we literally lost, I don't know, about a quarter of the audience in that switch on some of them, maybe a little more. But so I basically just made what I made, and we got to the end of the year, and then those came out on Mondays, and every Monday was like, in December was like a Christmas and a New Year. So I was like, well, we're just going to take some time off from that until you know, I can figure out what we want to do with this show, because I love making it and I want to continue to make it. But so, and then like, you know, Christmas came, the holidays, and then Sterling was here from January, the beginning of January until almost the middle of February, which was fantastic. I mean, like, I love the kid to death. I'd fucking kill people for him if he asked. But I'd literally do anything for that kid. But it was, you know, like one of those things where he was here, and it was just like, just keeping up with sick flicks. Like, I had not had a teething 6-month-old since in 30 years. Like my daughter is 30. So I had not, and I only have one child. So I, you know, had not had a baby in a long time. So I kind of slightly overestimated how much work a 6-month-old is, especially a teething 6-month-old. So, you know, that took up a lot of time for me. Oh, Martin, no problem, man. Thank you for stopping by. But, it's one of those things where, you know, like he was here, and it was like all I could do was keep up with sick flicks, and because, you know, that's the flagship show basically. So, you know, that's what I kind of tried to do. And now that he's gone home, and I'm like trying to, you know, like we burnt through some of the sick flicks backlog. I'm trying to get caught up, build that back up again, because, you know, we do that because I get so many stupid, ridiculous claims, which we can talk about later. We just had another one that's hilarious. But, my goal is to get those going again. So there is another, oh shit, I'm dropping stuff. There is another B-Movie Babylon episode scripted. It hasn't been filmed yet. And, you know, I'm going to try to figure out how to edit it in a way that's sort of a happy medium between the Mike phones it in and puts a still image on the screen and everybody gets mad, or Mike spends 40 hours cutting in B-roll for a show that's supposed to be an audio show. But I will tell you that that episode is about Caligula, and it is scripted. It's ready to be recorded, and I think you guys will like it when I finally get a chance to make it. Same deal with like B-Movie Babylon. B-Movie Babylon, or no, I'm sorry, not B-Movie, Deep Cuts. Deep Cuts did, we did 4 episodes of that like over the summer as sort of a trial thing, because I wanted to make more shit that was kind of like, you know, less jokey, more serious, like dabbling in video essay stuff. Because, you know, some of you know this about me, some of you don't. Before I ever came to YouTube, I spent like 20 years as a film critic. I wrote about horror films and Hong Kong action films and cult action stuff and exploitation for like IGN and a bunch of different places. And so, you know, that's why when we came to YouTube, we kind of decided to do Sick Flicks as like a jokey show, because I had done like 20 years of like serious, like film analysis crap, for lack of a better word. And, which sounds so pretentious, but like 20 years of serious reviews. And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to just go back and repeat all that, talk about all these movies again in the same way on video. So we put the jokes in and made like the Sick Flick show. But so this is the other thing, you know, next month is 5 years of this show, like 5 years of sick flicks, which is both on one hand feels like it's impossible, like I haven't even been doing this for a year, and on the other hand it feels like I've been doing it for 100 years. So it's not like a thing like I don't want to do sick flicks, but it's like sometimes like after 5 years it gets really hard to continue to find new ways to like make fun of movies. like I think I'm out of like tent puns at this point. I don't think there are any tent puns left that I haven't used at some point. So it's not stopping or anything like that, but I would like to have other shows that are sort of different so that I can approach things in kind of a different way sometimes. Plus, like, not every movie lends itself to sick flicks, right? That jokey treatment, like as we kind of learned with Martyrs and a couple other ones that were really incredibly difficult to make funny, which would have been better to kind of have a show where you didn't have to do that, where you could just kind of talk about the movies as seriously as they kind of deserved type thing. And but all that stuff is like still, none of it's dead. We haven't killed any of them. The problem with deep cuts was kind of, again, my ambition. Like I had this vision in my head of these sort of long, deep dives into a certain aspect of a movie, or a movie that we never got or something like that. And I would write them and do all the research and put it all together and film it. And then I would kind of hand it off to Jay. And the difference between that show and like Sick Flicks is when I hand him a script for Sick Flicks, it's basically about one movie, and he's got the movie, and he's got timestamps for where the footage is for every joke. And so with deep cuts, the stuff could cover like the movie. It could feature stuff from the extras to make a point. Like in Videodrome, we had a bunch of Marshall McLuhan stuff, which was totally, you had to go out and find. And I did not do a very good job of notating that stuff for Jay. And so these videos were taking him significantly longer to edit, just a really long time, especially even compared to like Sick Flicks. And so like, and they weren't generating enough money from the views to offset the increased editing costs. So we were kind of at a crossroads there. Like I was like, I have to like break even on these in the first month or whatever. So, but and like we just weren't if I had to pay more for editing. But he's had some time and he's learned some stuff working for this other channel, and he's back with me now full time with me still, nobody else again. And he learned a lot of cool stuff. So I think that will help. And I think I will be better about, scripting them and making sure he has the stuff he needs so that we don't have to spend like an exorbitant amount of time in editing for them type thing. So that's my goal anyway. We'll see if it actually works out. But I have another one of those like in the scripting. Actually, I have like a couple of those that are actually pretty close to being ready to film, except for the like me going through and finding all the stuff for him. So I think we'll get back to that kind of thing at some point in the next month or two is my hope. Right now, I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to dig out from under Sick Flicks, and I just had a crazy last half of 2023, and 2024 hasn't been off to a real banger start either. So, but I'm so glad you all showed up tonight, and I have missed some super chats. So let me go back and let me just go through here and see what I have missed. Immortal Mad Studio Establishing Shot. Hey, Mike, congrats on being a new grandparent. Christ, we're old, man. I feel so old. Like I was very nice that everybody told me like, hey, you don't look old enough to be a grandparent. And I'm like, well, thank you, but I am. And yes, the Studio Establishing Shot, your rare peek behind the curtain. It's very glamorous back here. Very glamorous. Real high tech in here. So, but thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Disinterested Hand Job, one of my favorite usernames. Love it. Amazingly, I still love your work, Mr. Geek. Can't hang around, but here's some financial appreciation anyway. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you didn't leave yet, but if you do, I hope you see it on like the replay or whatever. Yeah, that is amazing because you've been around for a long time. Like I have a very short shelf life with people. People get tired of my BS about, 2-3 years in. So like that some of you guys have been around for the full 5 years is like, wow, how do you put up with me? All right, Doug Russell, my favorite horror content on YouTube. It feels like we were supposed to be friends. I love hearing that. Thank you so much. There are some great horror content creators on this platform. So I'm always just incredibly flattered to kind of be lumped in there as anybody's favorite or in their group of favorites or anything like that. Because again, when you do these kind of riff reviews, there are people who absolutely get it. And then there are also people who just don't and hate it. And so I get plenty of that. So I'm glad that people found me. And the coolest thing is, like I say all the time, like, like the hard part about YouTube is they tell you like, never read the comments. And I always read them, as you know, cause I try to heart them all or respond to a bunch. It gets harder and harder as the channel gets bigger. But, I do read pretty much everything. And like 99.9% of you are fantastic. And I would totally hang out with you. So it's great. Like, it's been great for me because I wasn't doing this to become like some parasocial relationship thing where I'm like on some pedestal and you are my audience type thing. It's like, I just like to talk to people who like the same crap I like. So this was just the easiest way to find a bunch of people who wanted to talk about horror movies, because nobody in my life watches any of this stuff anymore. Like my one friend who did passed away. And, so I didn't have anybody to talk about this stuff with anymore. So other than people online, and it was easier to concentrate you all in one place type thing. So I appreciate that. Honest Dave, thank you. Rock on, brother. I will certainly try. It gets harder to rock on as I get older. All right, Northern, is that OLK? Northern, I'm sorry, I probably butchered it. Much appreciation to the love child of Arn Anderson and Zach Wilde. And brother of Kerry King and Jim Neidhart. Matt Florent, thank you. What's more important for a good horror movie, scary or gory? Both. I mean, it really depends on your mood. I would say, like, there are absolutely days where I want a scary movie, but there are plenty of days where I'm happy just to have some splatter. And I will be honest, after spending my entire life doing this, not much scares me anymore. Like, I'm kind of like, I always remember there was this Peter Straub quote where he was talking about, like someone asked him if he read other horror writers and if anybody scared him in that. And he's like, no, because I know how you perform the dance. I'm just kind of looking to see if they know how to dance. And that's kind of how I feel about most horror films as far as being scary. I don't find them particularly scary. Although that's not all of them. There are certainly exceptions. Anything... I'm super claustrophobic, so anything that has somebody like in a cave, like The Descent, when she gets stuck in the crack in the cave, is the scariest part of The Descent to me. You could take out the monsters completely and just leave her stuck there for 2 hours, and I would have a panic attack. So I watched some video. YouTube recommended some stupid video to me today. Some guy who's got like 670,000 subs or something who does cave exploration, and his video was he got stuck. And he's got a GoPro and he's down there in this like inch high thing with water and he gets stuck. And I'm just like, I'm literally having a panic attack just watching this video. So, but yeah, for me, I tend to like gory at this point because finding something scary is like super hard. They're so, few and far between as far as like scary stuff. So, hang on, let me jump over here, Steve, and let me see, because this is a good question. Steve says, I'll be visiting your neck of the woods. Oh, hang on. Don't move on me, chat. I'll be visiting your neck of the woods later this year. Any recommendations for physical media stores near Tampa? So we used to really have the great one, and the Grindhouse Video was in Tampa, and then Mike moved to Tennessee or Kentucky, and then he closed the physical store. So yeah, but there's another store down there, and I forget what the name of what street it's on, but it's in the exact same place and it's the exact same kind of store. It's just, I don't think it's as big, and I think he also carries like some more eclectic stuff than Mike was kind of predominantly horror focused and exploitation focused, and I think this guy has more action and stuff. I can't remember the name of it because I've never made it down to the store and I keep meaning to, but that one is the one. Like, beyond that, I'm really not sure. I tend to just order everything at this point because it's easier. So, but that was a great question. And let me know how your trip goes. Measy, Jim Ross impressions are good. Well, I hope so. I've been practicing, like, how many I walk around the house saying, by God, all the time, just trying to get better. So Doug, will you come to Horror Hound Weekend someday? If they invite me, I would love to come. So this is like the thing with the cons. So we had sort of an interesting con experience. So we did 2 last year through God, I can't remember the company, but I have a guy who handles that for me, Rick, who's a great guy, and we did 2 last year, and then we talked to a bunch more, but they kind of like, there's a sort of this thing with cons where they're starting to figure it out, because I see it, but like they didn't really get YouTubers. Like they didn't really understand that we had an audience and that people would come to see us, and that we were good to have at a con, because generally everybody's like, well, we want the Robert Englunds and the guys from Supernatural and the Stranger Things kids, and those are the draws, and they are the big draws, obviously. Like, but like when we went to Atlanta, Critical Drinker was there with us, and he drew a lot. And when we were in Tampa, there were some other people there. So and now, like, so we pitched a bunch of places, like at the end of last year, like for this year, like we're like, well, we should do Spooky Empire because it's Orlando, and I'm between Orlando and Tampa. And, and they were kind of like, yeah, and then nothing ever came of it. And we had a list of other ones, and it just like nothing ever really came together. And it was kind of like rough for me anyway, because like I said, I had been sick and I was behind on work. And like, to me, some guys going to the con is a part of the business. Like they go, they have something to sell, they make a bunch of money. It's a big opportunity. For me, I go to cons to hang out. Like you can give me a booth, I'll sell you some merch, but I really just like to go to hang out. For me, it's not really a business thing. Like I'm happy to do it and I love to make money while I'm there, but like that's like secondary to me. I just like to go and meet fans and meet people who didn't know us yet, and maybe they'll like us, or host do a panel, moderate. Like I moderated for James O'Barr in Atlanta, and so this year it's been like, again, it's been kind of like really weird. Like we have not gotten a lot of offers. We did just get a couple offers, I think, from somewhere like in St. Augustine and Georgia that we will probably do. I'm not sure yet. I have to make sure our schedule works out, but like Horror Hound and them, if they ever ask, I will come. I know like they're starting to figure it out, because we have Spookalla here is going to be in Tampa, and they've got James's coming. So Dead Meat's coming. So hopefully I will get to go hang out with Dead Meat. But I haven't asked him yet. So, but I hope. Chet Czar, my man, thank you. You're a grandpa too. Dude, Chet, I can't believe we're grandpas. We don't seem old enough to be grandpas. But thank you. Chet, if you don't know, is a fantastic artist, does amazing horror work. You should check him out on social media. His Instagram, he has like these incredible time-lapse paintings where he will, like start with a canvas, and then 5 minutes later, you've got this awesome horror monster or Frankenstein or, whatever. And it's just like, as a guy who can barely draw a straight line, I can't draw a straight line or a circle. It's fascinating to me to watch artists create. And watching that to me just blows my mind every time that he can do that. Like I'm so jealous and sort of weirdly envious that he can do that. So, all right, what else have I got here? We've got, is that Bastiel? Hi, thank you for the $5 super chat. Hi, Mike. I just watched Malignant and Basket Cases, a double feature in 4K. How do you rate the films? Greetings from Germany. Well, first off, thank you, and greetings from Florida. Malignant, that's the recent one, right? I still have not seen Malignant because I never get to see anything new. If you watch the show, you pretty much know what I watched in a given week, because a couple weeks ago, because I'm a couple weeks ahead all the time, but it's always stuff from the 80s. Basket Case I like. Basket Case is one that I have thought we should do on the show forever, and every time it comes up, I do something else, and I don't know why, but at some point that is actually going to happen. So all right, I think that's the super chats. I don't think I missed any. What are these little hearts here? Oh, there. I guess I can like those. Huh, that's new. Oh, we got some more. I'm sorry. This thing just didn't want to load. Hang on, let me find out where I was here. All right, no question. Just appreciate what you're doing. Thank you, David. I appreciate you. One of my favorite YouTube posters. Good memes. If you like funny memes, go follow David on Facebook. I'm sorry, Facebook, not YouTube. Measy, do you bite or clip your oh, Jesus, Measy, are we really going to do this tonight? The fingernails, really? Do we have to? Fine, I'll do it. You gave me $2. I'll do it. So the funny story about my fingernails, I clip them. But the thing is for years, from my childhood until I was probably in my 40s, I was a notorious nail biter. Like in junior high, my fingers would literally bleed because I would sit in class and stress out and just chew them down to nubs. And so I did that like through my entire adult life until literally like I was in my 40s. And then I got on, I started powerlifting, and I don't know what happened, but I just decided like, oh, I should be better about clipping my nails instead of biting them because this hurts all the time and it sucks. So I started clipping them, and I got really good, and I quit biting my nails. But the thing of it is because clipping my nails was never part of my normal routine, and I'm very routine oriented. I just don't think about them. And as I've said before, like as a power lifter, I don't have large hands. I have normal man-sized hands. I don't have big hands. I don't have tiny hands, but they're closer to small than big. I cannot palm a basketball or anything like that. But as a power lifter, because I have small hands, you want to hook grip a dead grip instead of split grip it, because if you split grip, you're more likely to pop a bicep, and that's a painful surgery and a long recovery. And at my age, it's probably the end of my deadlifting career. So they do what they call hook grip, where you mash your thumb into the bar, right? And put a finger over top of it like this. So, you get around the bar, but the index goes over the thumb. But because I have not gigantic hands, one of the ways, if you have smaller hands, that you can get a better grip is to get a little bit of extra fingernail on your thumb or your index finger or both. And so that gives you a little extra real estate at the end to get the grip locked in. And so I have always been like, yeah, I do that when I'm hook gripping. And so I never clip those nails because I like them to stay longer, but eventually you have to clip them or they break. But so whenever somebody complains about my fingernails, I'm like, A, I don't care. B, I'm not going to hold your hand. And C, I have a reason, and multiple reasons, and let's not give me crap for actually stopping biting my nails. Like, that was a good thing I did, right? So, yeah, but that's the internet. So that's the nail story. Can we please not talk about my fingernails tonight? Actually, I don't care. We'll talk about my fingernails all night if you want. Carl Eakins, thank you for the $10 super chat. Rock on, Mike. Greetings from Texas. We're not all bad. Well, greetings from Florida. We're not all bad either. Most of us are, but not all of us. A couple of us are okay. Johnny Recaps for the Grandpa Fund. Thank you so much. So let me tell you, Johnny Recaps is a dear friend of mine who is a creator on YouTube who makes horror content as well. And he has a newer channel that is coming into its own. And he is a fantastic content creator. Like I'm sorry, I complain when people say content creator, and I need to quit saying it because I think it demeans what we do. But he's a fantastic video maker. Like, his videos are just really good. You should absolutely go check out his channel, subscribe to him, leave him some comments, give him some thumbs up, tell him I sent you. But seriously, he makes some really good stuff. There's a lot of fun, and it's just sad to me that I see a lot of like marginal kind of content on this platform, and then I see someone like Johnny and Rob at Exploitation Reviews and guys like that who are out here, just struggling to find an audience, who make really good informative videos that are better than all the just like, oh, watch me react to some movie like I've never seen it before, like that gets 1 million views. So we should definitely check out Johnny's channel, please. Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. Mike, you're awesome. What movie is Hell Yeah from? Well, you pervs. And how many times did you lose on Beat the Geeks? You make my work days fun. Okay, that's a multiple part question. So let's dive in there, shall we? I am awesome. not really, but I like to think I am. I try to be. Hell yeah is from Joe D'Amato's Anthropophagus. It's, if you get the Blu-ray, which I highly recommend, it's at the 8-minute and 16-second mark. I know that because I have clipped that thing a million times when I used to edit the videos, and now Jay gets to do it. And Jay is a better editor than me because I would have to go re-clip it every single time, so I knew exactly where it was. And Jay's like, why are you doing this? You could just like make this a thing in a shared folder and have the clip and never have to go clip it again and just drop it in. And I'm like, oh. So yes, that's where it's from. How many times did I lose on Beat the Geeks? I actually don't remember anymore, but more than I like. So the most famous one is I lost to Paul Solomoff, who is a dear friend of mine now after being on the show, who's a filmmaker and just an all-around great guy. Fantastic dude. One of my favorite people. I wish we got to like hang out more, but he lives in California and I live in Florida, and just logistics. But I definitely lost to him, which is, you know, a great story I've told before, that like I was beating him in the final round, and he had to take a 3-point question, which were the really hard questions to win, because I was only needed a 2 and I was totally going to nail a 2 and win on my next turn. And he took a 3, and it was literally a question about a movie, The Sentinel, that he had watched the day before. So he got this question, this 3-point Hail Mary question right, and snatched my victory away from me as I was just about to dance my way into the end zone. But yeah, so I think I lost twice in the final round. But yeah, and like I said, like, and this always sounds like funny, petty sour grapes, but I contest my other loss in the final round because there was at least one or two, there were like 2 questions in that final round that were just incorrect. And, or one was incorrect and one was not horror related. Like one of them that I got pissed about and I still hold a grudge about was like a question about John Carpenter's Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And I'm like, that's not a horror movie. So why are you asking me this? Like, you can't just ask me any John Carpenter question. You're going to ask me about Starman? So that was one. And then the most famous one is the Child's Play. What was the subtitle of Child's Play 3? And it's like, Child's Play 3 didn't have a subtitle. I thought it was a trick question because I'm like, Child's Play 3 didn't have a subtitle. And they're like, no, it's Look Who's Stalking. And I'm like, no. That's the line on the poster. That's not the subtitle of the movie. It's just a tagline on the poster. But, you know, I lost. So, yeah, I still have, sour grapes all this time later. So, yeah. Easy. I fall asleep to your voice. Not creepy. No, it's not creepy. I'm happy. Anybody likes any of the stupid shit I do. Like for me, that is the greatest thing in the world to me, because when you start YouTube, you never know how like people are going to respond to you. Like you know, like me, I had an audience from years of writing and being on TV and all that. But it's like, Jesus, you get on YouTube and it's a totally different world over here. And you're always a little bit worried that like, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe people are going to think I'm an idiot. I am an idiot, but maybe they'll figure it out. You know, like I don't want people to figure out I'm a moron. So yeah, we, you know, come over here and do it. And it's just like, you never know how it's going to go. And to be in a position where the channel should hit 100K subs this year if we stay on the pace we normally do in a year, which right now we're behind. But we should absolutely hit 100K like later this year or very early in 2025, which is awesome. And to me, that just blows me away that people like, you know, we have almost 100,000 people here who like this stupid show I do. And so, yeah. And if you find me comforting, because all I ever hear is how much my voice sucks. And look, nobody likes their own voice. I certainly don't like mine. I thought, oh, why didn't I get a Barry White voice? That was way more what I wanted in life, but I just didn't get it. And, so yeah, so if you like it and it helps you fall asleep, I'm happy. If you want to binge the videos endlessly, I'm happy. If, you know, you want to share them with your friends, I'm happy. I'm happy that people want to talk to me. I'm happy that people come to the live streams. it's all very cool to me. So I don't find it creepy. Not at all. The fingernail comments are more creepy to me than only not your fingernail comment, by the way, but like in general, like I'm like, dude, like my hands are not the focal point of the frame ever. What are you doing? So like, I always wonder how people are seeing those things. Amy Ramirez, how are you? Yes, 100K subs. Fingers crossed, man. We're just trying to get there. Trying. Warren Marshall, you did the Jack the Ripper tour. That's so funny because my significant other, she often talks about they went to London years ago when she was previously married, and her kids loved the Jack the Ripper tour, and I'm a big Jack the Ripper nerd, so I would love to go on that tour someday. Johnny recaps, did the channels ever get in the way of training? No, because I won't allow them to. I lift as well, and I find the weights are the first thing to get pushed aside if I'm behind on my uploads. See, I'm the opposite. So I don't know if this is because I'm so routine oriented. Like, this is one of my skills YouTube wise is that I just, I have a routine for everything. And I think that's part of how I manage to like maybe not miss uploads very often. I mean, like, especially not for Sick Flicks. We've only missed one, and that wasn't my fault. That was Indonesia's fault. And I think it's because I like a system for everything. Like the show has a very set production system. Like I do the research to know what movie I'm going to do next. And then I do a little bit of like what I want to talk about. And then I go through and write the script, and we notate everything. And I have a day where I rip the movies. And then I have a day where I come in here and film like 3 to 5 episodes. And then they go to Jay, and Jay edits them. And then if we have a sponsor, that gets dealt with separately and dropped into the video eventually. And so I think for me, that is why I generally don't get off the schedule and have to bump weightlifting. And here's the other thing. I couldn't do it because A, I like powerlifting too much, and B, it's the only thing that keeps me sane most days. Like, there's a very real thing to the idea that, exercise and lifting weights and all that is great for dealing with anxiety or depression or stress or whatever. And for me, that is particularly true. Like, so when we had a harder time keeping me on a lifting schedule when Sterling was here, like I missed more days in January than I have missed in the last like 5 years combined, probably. So that was definitely harder for me. But the show generally doesn't get in the way too often. Warren, would you ever come to the UK? Absolutely. This is one of those things, like going back to the con thing, like for us, because again, I kind of consider it like sort of an ancillary business thing, not like a primary focus of my business. I understand that my job is to make videos and post them on YouTube and for you guys to watch them. And that's how I basically, make my income and live my life. And so I could not, I could go to more shows, but a lot of them I would kind of have to pay to go to or to get to. So it's nice when one of these things is like, hey, we want you to come, and we're gonna pay for your travel in and give you a room and give you a booth at the show, and you just take care of your food or whatever, which is, so it's not like costing me money to do these things and time. So, but yeah, if anyone ever from the UK ever says, hey, why don't you come over here and do a con here, we'll bring you on over. I'm on the first flight. Because I've never been, so I'm like super excited to go. Ever seen Sharks of the Corn? No. I have a real, like, it's really funny because I like so much trash, right? But I just do not care for all of these weird, like everything that came in the wake of Sharknado and all that, all the weird shark movies and the Corman Sharktopus and all that stuff just doesn't really appeal to me for some reason. So I don't know. So I haven't seen that one. They didn't call it Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream. Absolutely, Garrett. That was like my whole argument. I'm like, come on, guys. It's literally right on the poster that this is not the tagline, the subtitle. It's a tagline. Like, come on. Oh, we got a couple more super chats here. Kitten Mittens, thank you. Discovered your channel while off work due to an injury, and you have kept me happily entertained. Love your channel. Oh, I'm so glad, and I hope you're getting recovered and everything's good, and you get back to work. Because sitting at home, if you're in America, you're probably not getting paid. That's rough. All right, Jonathan, thank you again. Last question. My late father liked the movie Event Horizon. Will we ever see the lost cut of the film? P.S. I grew up near Skokie. Oh, Camp Crystal Lake. Your thoughts on 1980s Friday the 13th? All right. So first up, thank you. Second up, boy, that Event Horizon video is really sort of like an interesting, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like a interesting litmus test of people's perceptions. We did that episode and because I find that story really fascinating. I really like Event Horizon. I liked it when I literally saw it in the theater pretty much by myself. And so we made this video because I wanted to talk about the story. I think the story is interesting. I think that they lost the footage and then then it was like in a salt mine and ruined and all this stuff is interesting. And and then there was talk about, oh, we have this version on VHS and then nothing ever came of that. And like, nobody's ever said, well, why didn't anything come of that? Was it actually not on VHS? Was it not footage? Or somebody just forget about it or what? But making that video is fascinating to me because you see a lot of people don't actually watch a video. They just show up to comment. And so I got so exhausted from hearing people go, no, it was burnt in a warehouse fire. And it's like, no, watch the video. Like, we talk about that in there. We talk about it being in the salt mine, but that doesn't mean that you'll never see it. That just means that that footage was messed up. But if you think that there was only one copy of all this extra footage that got cut, you don't know how the studios work. So, and I always come back to the point of Nightbreed. We thought for forever that footage of Nightbreed was gone. And it wasn't. They found it like 20 some years later. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we will see somebody find that Event Horizon footage in a box in a garage or an attic or a building somewhere at some point. So I'm not comfortable saying we'll never see it. I know a lot of people are. There's certainly a chance we'll never see it. There's plenty of lost media that never gets discovered. But I think a studio film like that, somebody walked out of that place with that footage and has it somewhere, and either they know about it and they just don't want to give it up, or they don't even know they have it, and maybe we'll find it or maybe we won't. But my attitude is that I think it's more likely that we will find and see that lost footage at some point than not. So, but that's just my take. But 1980s Friday the 13th, it's a landmark film. I mean, what else can you say? It's funny to look at Friday the 13th now in light of what the franchise became, because it's really sort of a low rent American giallo, for lack of a better term. Like, it's not the slasher movie that the series became. And I have always thought that, I've never been a huge fan of the ending of the original Friday the 13th. Like, I was absolutely ecstatic as a kid when they went in the direction in the sequels, like, oh, it is Jason now, right? So I never, like, Mrs. Voorhees made sense in that giallo sense. She had an axe to grind and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a great flick though. Like all those, it's a classic. What could you say negative about it? Like, anybody who has anything negative to say about it, who's a horror fan, I'm always like, really? Like, you don't like this? What do you like? So, Measy, you're back again. Is my carpet soft? Yeah, it's pretty soft. I don't know. Like, so most of my house is tile, which is great, except the bedrooms, for some reason, when we bought it, still had carpet in them. And this room, I didn't know for sure it was going to be a studio when we bought this house like 6 years ago, but I suspected it was, and I knew like treating a room with tile floor and nothing in it was going to be a nightmare. So we absolutely did not rip the carpet out of here. I would like to put different carpet in here because it's very old carpet, but it's been a low traffic area until like I moved in here and turned it into a studio. I'm in here a lot, but But yeah, pretty soft. Not too bad. I wouldn't want to sleep on it, but because it's carpet, but it's nice enough. I'll tell you what, the funniest thing about getting old is having tile in your house is like you will tweak your knee just standing on tile after, a couple hours during the day. I tweak my knee all the time doing that, and like nothing. It's like when you wake up with a neck ache. Like, how does that even happen? LMLNJ, thank you for the super chat. Love the show. This feels like a peek behind the SF curtain. Thoughts on the Chicago murder castle serial killer H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper? I have never bought into that theory. I find it fascinating. I can certainly see. I always think back to what was the Richard Lehman book? I can't remember the name of it, and I just saw it on my shelves the other day. But he wrote a book where like the Ripper ended up in America, and I always thought, yeah, that's kind of like if H.H. Holmes had been the Ripper. I think the H.H. Holmes story is just fascinating on its own. Like, you don't even need the Ripper stuff in there to make that thing interesting, because it's just the murder castle and the whole World's Fair thing and all the crazy shit he did. Yeah, that's like I keep, what was the other, was it The Alienist? Well, they keep talking about making one of those into a movie. I wish they would. I think that we don't have a really good H.H. Holmes film is kind of a travesty. So Under Club Lights, thank you. Thoughts on Funhouse 1981 from Toby Hooper. I like it. We've thought about doing it on the show. I don't know that it's, and look, this is like not ever a deterrent for me doing anything not being gory. I didn't know if it was gory enough or interesting enough for Sick Flicks. It's not my favorite Toby Hooper film. The thing that's most interesting to me about it is how it ended up on the Video Nasties list because they basically mistook it for Last House on Dead End Street, which also had the title The Fun House as one of its alternate titles. And I always thought that was kind of more interesting. The movie's cool. I like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of it. I suspect we'll do it at some point. So this is the hard thing about the show now for me is like, as it gets bigger, when we were like under 50K subs, I had a better idea of what the audience wanted to see every week from me, like what you guys were into. And so like, that was how I could go like, oh yeah, we do these Claudio Fragasso, Bruno Mattei flicks, everybody will watch because my audience is that's just their guys. And, and now as we get closer to 100K, it's way, way tougher to tell. So like sometimes, things will do well for a while and then they won't. And I go back to the well too many times. Linnea Quigley is a great example of that. Like we had a really good run with doing Linnea Quigley films and, Embrace of the Vampire and Not of This Earth with Tracy Lords. And then we kind of, that just kind of stopped. I don't know why. Like, I guess, I don't know if people just aren't that interested in Linnea Quigley now or what, but, and it's always weird. Like now it's like almost to the point where if I think something will do well, it won't do well. And if I think something will bomb, it will do well. So I just kind of have to like reverse psychology myself all the time now. So, but I really don't know anymore how anything will do when I make it. Like, and that makes everything challenging because, at the end of the day, there are so many movies left for me to cover. I would like to prioritize ones that are going to do well for the channel and help us continue to make more. And so every time we do one that kind of, bombs, for lack of a better term, it stings a little bit because it's like, oh man, I thought that would do way better. Hellraiser 2, great point. The first Hellraiser did surprisingly well for us, but it was very early in the channel's history, so I didn't necessarily have the audience who was so much into the obscure stuff yet. But then we go back to Hellraiser 2, which I think is a better film and more interesting, and that really just didn't do well. And that's kind of the thing, like anytime we edge into sort of mainstream stuff or that people are already kind of familiar with, it just doesn't do that well. And I like that. That's fine. Like if you guys, I get the feeling that like you guys come to me because you're like, oh, this guy's going to find the shit I've not even heard of or the really weird shit I've only heard about and never seen. And I'm fine with that because I like that stuff. So the world does not need me to talk about Halloween or Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw. Like, there's a billion things about those out there. I understand these films and have a passion for them and know a lot about them, but I don't think I have anything to add to the discussion that you couldn't have seen 10 other videos at least, or books or whatever. So I'm happy to do the weird stuff. But it's yeah, and Hooper's Funhouse, tying that all back together in my rambling way, is kind of like a I don't know, I think it might be too mainstream for the channel, but I don't know. So we'll certainly try it at some point. There's going to be a week where I'm like, yep, let's do Funhouse this week. But I don't know when that's going to be. It's not in the next month because I've got all that stuff made. Brian Mills, a geek for life, and I'm still the only one you've given 2 shout outs. Take the grandkids somewhere. Thank you. Are you my only 2 shout outs still? I always wonder if I've ever got anybody twice. That's funny because I was looking at the list today because I was scripting, and it's wild to me that we do 3 a week pretty much every week, and I have not gotten through the entire list of patrons yet. So that's a great problem to have. Like, every time I get close, I get an influx of new people, and then so the list grows again. But I also often feel bad because I'm like, at the rate it goes, like, some people have been waiting over a year to get their shout out. And I'm like, God, I hope they don't get frustrated and quit, or, like, go like, oh, he's never going to give me my shout out. I just really go down the list chronologically every week. And so, yeah, I swear I got someone else twice, but it wasn't intentional. I think I got you twice intentionally. So, Jonathan, I did Human Centipede. Yeah, I did it way back in the early days. And so, funnily enough, that was another example. That was like the first time I think I learned, like, just because something's popular and does well for a lot of channels in your space does not necessarily mean it will do well for me. And that was one. Like, so, back when I did it, again, was early days. It was like in my first year. And I had seen, obviously I'd seen it when it came out, and I've seen all of them and interesting. I find them interesting. I don't dislike them. I think 2 is a repugnant film, but that's fascinating to me and how repugnant it is. But, and 3 is kind of a disaster, but the first one, yeah. But so we did it, and we did it at the time where, like, guys were doing it and they were popping off. Like, those videos, like Newbie did it. The Newbie, who's another great channel, guy I like a lot, actually lives in my old hood in California, pretty close. He did it, and he put up like over 1 million views. So I see that and I go, well, shit, I can put up, if he can put up 1 million, he's bigger than me, but I can probably get 100,000. 100,000 at that stage was like a million for me. And I still don't have a 1 million view video. I have one 500K and one at like 499, but nothing else, nothing close to 1 million. But he put up over 1 million on that, and some other channels put up, multiple hundreds of thousands. And so I thought, oh, well, I should definitely do this, and I did, and I did not get age gated. I did get demonetized on it, obviously. And I think it's done like 70,000 views, which is not, it's fine. That's a good video for me. It's taken a long time to get there, but it did not do the millions of views I was hoping or expecting based on what it was doing on other channels. And again, that's funny because I've seen that happen to me multiple times. We had that happen when I did Antrim. Antrim was one I'd wanted to do, and then it popped off. And so, like, other channels were having a lot of success with that. And I went, oh shit, we better just do Antrim now. And, so guys were doing Antrim and putting up, a couple 100,000, 500,000 views, whatever. And, we did it and we got like 50. And again, nothing to sneeze at. Video was profitable. Which is all I ever asked for. As long as it covers the costs to make and, makes me a few bucks, I'm happy. Just so I'm not working for free. But yeah, it just didn't do that. And then again, like this summer we tried it. Jay was like, look, man, let's just do some of these more modern films that are, that put up big numbers on other channels. And I'm like, sure. What do you want to do? And I'm like, I'll script whatever. He's like, let's do Species and Wrong Turn and all this stuff. And so we did them, and Species didn't put up 20,000 views, despite everyone else getting like hundreds of thousands on it. Wrong Turn put up like 22,000 views, despite everyone getting hundreds of thousands of views everywhere else on it. And the joke was that like I made those and I bumped Nothing Underneath, which I didn't think was a particularly good episode or movie at the time. I've come around on it since, but we bumped it for those because I thought they would do better. And then we were joking, and Jay's like, watch, Nothing Underneath is going to do better than both of these popular films. And I said, oh, I guarantee that'll happen. And it did. So that weird Donald Pleasance eating pasta in a Wendy's video did better than Wrong Turn or Species for me. So yeah. All right, what else am I missing here? Under Club Lights, thank you. B-Movie Babylon for any Trauma flicks, or could they make it straight to Sick Flicks? Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that I would do trauma-wise would end up on Sick Flicks. Like Toxic Avenger should absolutely go on Sick Flicks. The only reason I haven't done it is because I figure YouTube's going to make my life miserable over it. But then there are things that I would do on B-Movie. Like I would like to talk about Combat Shock at some point, which, you know, they have distributed. I would put that over there. I would put Sergeant Kabuki Man would probably go over there. So they're really just a sort of a film by film basis. But yeah, I think like Trauma, like Canon, a lot of their stuff would go on B-Movie, could fit over there. And sometimes it's just a case of not even like if it would fit on both, but maybe it's something where, you know, I would rather talk about it more seriously than do all the jokes. So then it would go on B-Movie. That's kind of my litmus test. Like B-Movie has never been designed to exclude horror films. When I came up with the idea, I'm like, no, it can be any kind of B-movie. And I have a very liberal definition of B-movie for that as well. But yeah, I think like it's really more a case of, how do I want to talk about the film? Do I want to make jokes about it? It would go on Sick Flicks. If it's gory and I want to make jokes about it, it's going to go on Sick Flicks. If it's gory and I don't want to make jokes about it, it's probably going to go on B-Movie. If it's not gory and I want to talk seriously about it, it's going to go on B-Movie or Deep Cuts. Like if I can find some angle for Deep Cuts. But Hans, thank you. I always appreciate Lance Henriksen's insights. He has a lot of thoughts about things, that guy. I really like him a lot. He always brings something interesting to the table, even if it seems like it's often familiar to me. But yeah, that clip, man, that was the happiest accident of my life. I don't know what possessed me back in the early days to do the horror show when I did, because I had not seen it since I saw the horror show on like my 16th birthday. I'm pretty sure it was my 16th birthday. I was 16. My parents, they're like, you're 16. You can stay home from school. We're going to leave you the keys to the car. Here's some money. You can go to the video store, go buy you some food, rent you some movies and games or whatever you want to play. We'll have our party tonight, but you're 16. It's your free day. And so I was like a pig in shit, man. Send me up to the video store with the car and let me rent whatever I wanted. And I rented the horror show because even then I loved Lance Henriksen and I really loved Brian James. So like those two guys in a movie, great. And then I got it and it was like, oh, like at 16-year-old me was a little more jaded about things, a little more snobbish about things, I guess. And so I got that movie home and I'm like, oh God, I'm like, this is cool because these guys are great, but the story is basically just an Elm Street ripoff, right? It feels very much like an Elm Street film with minus Freddy. And so I kind of just like saw it a couple times when I was 16, 17, 18, until I got out of high school. Like you would go and rent the same 10 movies all the time because you were kids and that's just what you did. And then I didn't see it again for forever until I did the video. Like I had not seen that film for probably 30 years. And for some reason, I'm like, you know what? Let's do the horror show. And like Lance Henriksen and Brian James, like people got to love that. People need to know about that, right? And so there wasn't a lot of coverage of it. So I did, that's how early YouTube was for me, was just finding films that were sort of soft spots where they were movies that I liked, but there weren't like necessarily a million videos covering it. And that was one of them where I felt like I could not get crushed by dead meat. So he hadn't done it. So I wasn't going to get murdered by his video. So then I'm making it and I get to that scene and I had totally forgotten that was even in there. And I saw it and it was just like so perfect. And I have a buddy, Derek, who's a realtor, and I put it in the video, and he was watching the videos, and he was cracking up at it too. And I'm like, this is a thing, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I want a clip of this. So every time my buddies at work send me something stupid in email, I can just send them this clip back. and that's how it ended up in there. But yeah, Lance is, people are always like, oh, you should make Lance Henriksen merch. And I'm like, I don't want Lance to sue me. So I love Lance too much to have him pissed off at me. I don't want to steal his image. So Measy, back again. You're the best, man. 2-part question. Do you watch post 1999 horror videos? Yes. When I have time. So this is the thing about Sick Flicks and doing this is like so much of my show skews to earlier 90s stuff and back into the 80s, obviously. And they take so long to make, and I spend so much time with each movie, and especially and then you add in B movie, Babylon, and all that. It's very hard for me to keep up with the new stuff anymore because it's just too time consuming making the videos to watch other movies for fun. So yeah, but I do. In fact, I just finally saw the Strangers sequel the other day, only like 6 years late, but I did see it. So if you've seen the original Cabin Fever, I made a video on it. It's on the channel. It's back in the archives. I like it. Maybe a 4-part question. The gummies get me all the time, man. They're the best. Musical Bear, thank you. Huge fan. Watching in the UK. Have you seen Beware My Brethren? I think you'd like it. I have not. I don't even know what that is. So is that recent? Is it older? I'm going to have to look that up. I'll have to try to remember it after the stream. Put it in, leave a comment below asking me if I have seen that so I will find it and remember to look it up. Depressed Canadian. Oh, boy, how can Canadians be depressed? You guys are so nice. Plus you got hockey. Finally caught a live stream while it's live. Love your channel. What are some of your favorite non-movie related YouTube channels? Oh, that's a great question. It's sort of a funny question too. You ask someone what their favorite YouTube channels are, you learn a lot. It's like looking at their bookshelves. You can learn a lot about their sort of niche, weird interests, right? First off, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you love the channel. Literally, guys, I cannot stress this enough. I do this because I like doing it, but the reason I like doing it is because you guys like it. I say all the time, like if people stopped watching, I would not be one of those YouTubers, at least I like to think I wouldn't be, who would try to cling desperately to the show because it was such a part of my identity or whatever. I would literally just be like, okay, we had a run. It was good. It was fun. It was cool. I have plenty of other hobbies and things I can do to make a living. And so, yeah, this year was very trying. I have not talked about this to a lot of people, but like this summer with being sick and everything going on, there was a real couple of weeks where I'm like, maybe I should just go do something else for a while, but like you guys, the comments and the lives and the premieres and all that, like seeing people laugh at my stupid shit and just have a good time and leave comments and want to talk about cool movies and stuff. That's literally why I do this. Because believe me, I'm not getting rich. So there are plenty of YouTubers who are getting rich. This guy is not one of them. So I'm constantly in trouble on the platform for stuff. I'm constantly getting hit with demonetizations on old videos and new videos alike. And so it's always an uphill battle. And really, I do it because I like you guys. And like, I like hanging out and talking about these movies. So the most important part, my favorite non-movie related YouTube channels. So my YouTube viewing habits tend to skew into a couple very distinct categories. The first is obviously powerlifting stuff. So I'm always up in like Alex Bromley's channel all the time, Dave Tate at Elite FTS, Dr. Mike, anybody who's going to teach you stuff about becoming a better lifter, I'm interested in. And a lot of times my problem with YouTube powerlifting now is that so much of it is skewed to guys who are noobs at powerlifting, which is great. We all start somewhere. Don't think I'm denigrating anyone for not being as strong as me. But a lot of it skews to guys who are new and guys who are young. And so I'm a guy who's basically an advanced to elite level power lifter. And I'm also a guy who's 51. so like I can't train like a 20-year-old anymore. My body just won't do it. And, but I'm also a guy who goes like, if you're saying 225 on a bench is unobtainable, you need to get in the gym and work. Like 315 is attainable for pretty much any guy in my book. Like if you put in the work, you're going to get there. Like to me, you start talking about like unattainable for guys when it gets to like a 405 bench or a, 600 plus squat. Like I've seen lots of guys who are not super athletes nail a 600 pound squat and a 600 pound deadlift. Like you don't have to be a specimen to hit that. But to go beyond that, you start to really have to refine what you're doing. So I like a lot of those channels, even though I find that like they don't always provide things that are super helpful to a guy in my position, which is why sometimes I'm like, oh, we should make a powerlifting channel for older guys, or like a lifting channel, because nobody's serving that audience particularly well. I love tons of true crime stuff. Mr. Ballin, I used to watch Coffee House Crime a lot. He's too nice to be doing crime videos. That guy sounds so nice, and it's so funny to hear that dude talk about like these horrible things with that like soft voice he has. I like lots of Disturbing, Mr. Nightmare, all those guys. Like, I'm not like a religious, like, first at the premiere guy, but like, they'll turn up in my feed and I'll watch them. But mostly I watch a ton of hip hop videos because YouTube's greatest achievement, I think, is that it might be the world's greatest repository of music. If you watch the show, which you obviously do, I like a lot of, underground hip hop. And like a lot of times I like stuff that I don't even talk about on the show. That's like super obscure, like stuff that had like, these guys had 112 inch in New York in like 1987 that summer. And that was it. And like, you can't find that stuff on Spotify or Apple Music or anything like that. But YouTube, someone has uploaded that. So I'm constantly like, digital crate digging, looking for hip hop I've forgotten about or stuff I've missed. So, but I love the platform. Like it's an amazing platform. I should rephrase that. I love and hate the platform. There are many problems with this platform that they will never address and never fix. And I've just resigned myself to that. But it's also pretty amazing that like you can come on YouTube and find like videos on how to do things or how to become better at things or just funny things. Like I literally watch more YouTube than I watch TV. Like I hardly watch TV at all anymore, but I watched a ton of YouTube just because I'm interested in learning things or, certain topics and also just kind of seeing what other people are doing in different spaces. Like I just find like there's a lot of creativity here, and it's unfortunate that now a lot of the creativity kind of gets stifled in favor of, more commercial stuff, but it's still a cool platform. So I hope that answered sort of. I would have made a whole list if I'd known somebody was going to ask. The 3X part. I think I got that right. Thank you. Horror Show and Shocker were too similar, I thought. Yeah, they're very similar. So that's like that weird, how you get like 2 asteroid movies one summer or 2 volcano movies. I think that's like one of those weird, like collective conscience things. Like the ideas are floating out there and like they hit multiple people at the same time or close together and then everybody runs with it. So, I have not seen Shocker in a long time. I have pulled it off the shelf and thought about doing the episode like 10 times in the last year. And I don't know why I never do, but I think, because I haven't seen it in a long time, I think I like the Horror Show more actually, because it's hard to top Lance Henriksen and Brian James. And they just look like they're having a good time in that movie. So David Thompson, thank you so much. No question, I'm assuming, because I don't see one. Jonathan, again, thank you. What happened to Donald Pleasance's career after Halloween? That's that he stooped to questionable quality Italian films. Did any American film sue Italian filmmakers? What do you consider the worst ripoff? Wow. All right. Pleasance's career after Halloween. Pleasance's career was always sort of on this trajectory. Like even before Halloween, Pleasance would do horror films. He would do B movies. Like, I mean, he did He did American Rickshaw. He did Puma Man. He was no stranger to doing crap projects, and he was very blunt about the reason he did those films and Halloween sequels in particular was that, like he said it in a direct quote in an interview, I like living in Spain and I like drinking expensive wine, and these films pay for that, basically. So, and I cannot hate the dude for that. Like, if you said to me, you can be in some crappy movies and we're going to pay you a ton of money and you can live the good life and buy a nice house and drive fancy cars and have good wine, I'd be like, sure, sign me up. I'm like, well, what do I care? And was he better than the material? Yes. Were Cushing and Christopher Lee better than the material? Yeah. Vincent Price was often better than the material. So I can't fault him for that. But that's basically what happened. He just reached a point where it was like, I'm going to work because this is relatively easy. They pay me a lot of money because I'm a name, and like, he's the big name. So, he comes in and he got treated better than Jamie Lee Curtis and all them. So that was great for him. And he gets paid and he's done quick, and then he gets to go drink wine and hang out in Spain. So I can't fault him for that. He did a lot of Italian films. He did a lot of films in general. So, the American films through the Italians, yes. Not the studios like Great White, The Last Shark. They Universal sued them over the Jaws thing, and the same thing has sort of happened with Cruel Jaws. That film they just kind of never really released in America because they knew they were going to get sued, because they literally had spliced in scenes from Jaws and Jaws 2 and Jaws the Revenge into it. It kind of came out here, but it flew under the radar, and they didn't really push it because they knew they'd get sued. And then I guess when Severin brought it out a couple years ago on Blu-ray, it was not available very long. I'm glad I got mine because I think they were threatening to sue over it even being on Blu-ray. And, rightfully so, because they literally spliced in footage from those films. So, but the worst ripoff, like the most blatant ripoff, or the worst quality compared to the original, because we could go a lot of different ways there, and I'm gonna need a clarification before I figure that out. Measy, am I a juggalo? No, I'm not a juggalo. I will say this: I find juggalo culture fascinating. When I went to college, I was an English major and a film studies guy. But there was a period where I really thought about being a sociology student, like going to grad school or getting a doctorate in that or something, because I find like sociology, like looking at groups and of people and their beliefs and interests and all that, fascinating. And juggalos are really fascinating to me because you look at them and I always go, what the fuck are these people thinking, right? Like the makeup and the out in the woods with the hatchets and the gathering and all that stuff. And, but it's a great sort of object lesson about not judging books by their covers necessarily, because I've also found that I've met a lot of juggalos over the years, and they are like the nicest people. Like everyone I've met would literally give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. Which is just funny to me, because you look at them and you think like, oh God, these guys are probably super antisocial and, into their clique and just weird and all that stuff. And no, everyone I've met, and I've met quite a few, has just been super nice. So yeah, I'm not a juggalo, but I'm fascinated by the culture. The whole thing. I just remember like the first time, like back in the 90s, like hearing about Insane Clown Posse and being a hip hop guy. I didn't really know what they were about, and so I picked up one of the albums. I'm like, oh, this is not for me. but I find them really interesting, and I'm not even sure why exactly, other than that sort of disconnect between, like, you look at them and you think these guys are probably all psychos, and it turns out many of them are very nice. So yep, chased off Nazis at the Washington. Exactly. Like, yeah, so I try, like, my attitude is just like, if you're chill to me, I'm chill to you. So if you're a dick to me, we're going to have problems, but cause I'm not a small man, but if you're cool with me, I'm good. So, yeah, Time Baby. That's absolutely my experience. I've never met a juggalo who was not like super friendly and super nice and willing to like give you their food, give you their drinks, give you whatever you needed if they could help you. And to me, that's just cool because like a lot of fandoms, especially now, Jesus Christ, you look at the internet fandoms of things, and it's just like everybody's at everybody's throats all the time over every damn thing. Like horror fans are just constantly like, no, this movie is better. No, you suck because you like this movie. And it's like, dude, they're all great movies. Like, why are we arguing about this? Like, and look, I'm as guilty of that as anyone because like you get into a rap discussion and you start trying to tell me that Eminem or Tupac is better than Rakim, like I'm gonna spend half an hour telling you why you're wrong, but I'll be nice about it at least. Most of the internet is not even nice about it, so. All right, see if I missed any chats here. I did for sure. Oh, nope, I missed one. Here, let me find it here. I think I went past it. Depressed Canadian again. We gotta get you undepressed. For decades, Lance Henriksen had been the American Donald Pleasance, a great actor who would slum it in B movies. We don't really have great character actors like that anymore. Perhaps Russell Crowe. We really do not have great character actors like Lance anymore. In fact, I've been saying this for the better part of 15 years now. Like, I used to like change my Facebook banner to like different movie images, that meant something to me that I wanted to share with people type thing. And we literally had one point I had that was Bronson and Lee Marvin in The Dirty Dozen. And I just was like, they just don't make movie stars like these guys anymore. And that is wildly true now. Like, could you imagine like if Lee Marvin or Donald Pleasance were alive in their prime trying to get work? They probably wouldn't because they don't have those like tradition, what Hollywood loves now, that leading man look. They're not super attractive, chiseled dudes, but those dudes were men. They were real men like them and Robert Mitchum. Like they just don't make actors like that anymore. And it's sad because, we don't get great stars like that anymore. And we like the lack of character actors is the most depressing thing in the world to me because like one of my favorite thing, and again, you guys watch the show, I'm more interested a lot of times in a character actor being in a movie than I am the star. so like Lance Henriksen, if Lance Henriksen's in it, I don't care how crappy it is. I watched Mind Ripper like 3 times and that movie's awful, but Lance Henriksen's in it, so I was going to see it. And I had to watch it 2 more times to make sure it sucked, and I just wasn't having a bad day. But so yeah, they don't make actors like that anymore, which breaks my heart. Because Hollywood is dreadfully boring now. Like I just everything that comes out, I can't with the superhero movies or any of that stuff anymore. It's just like I'm just not interested, which is so weird because like I have a pretty good sized comic collection and I loved all these stories when they were in comics, and in my 20s, I would have gone nuts over these movies. As they would have been like my dream come true to see these things on a big screen. But now at 50, I'm just like, yeah, I read all those comics. I don't really need to sit through. Plus, it's the 3-hour thing. I don't want to sit through 3-hour movies. You may notice that I do a lot of short movies on the show. It's because I don't want to sit through 3-hour movies anymore. So. The 3X part again. Did you like Slick Rick? Yes, absolutely. I think you mentioned him on the show. I have multiple times, and Ghetto Boys. Yeah, Slick Rick's a legend, man. Great jewelry, the eye patch, the delivery with the British accent. So I talk all the time, not as often on the show, but in real life, I talk all the time about, I'm old, so I discovered hip hop very early in hip hop's life, and I did not live in New York. We lived near Pittsburgh, and so like the tapes of parties in New York would happen, and then they would migrate slowly westward out of the city, and eventually they would end up with me. Like somebody I know would have a tape of a tape of a tape of a tape, kind of like movies, and so I would hear this stuff, and I had heard a lot of rap from the very early days, like, I'd heard the, the Busy Bee, Kumo D battle, all that stuff. But the moment that I absolutely fell in love with hip hop, like where there was no going back, was the first time I heard Lottie Dottie and the Show. So Dougie Fresh, Slick Rick, both songs. That was it. So Slick Rick has always had a very, very special place in my heart because like he was there from the beginning for me. So, and the Ghetto Boys is another thing that's funny because, a lot of people only found the Ghetto Boys when they got to the second album, Grip It, on that other level. But I had the first album because I was such a hip hop nerd. I would just go into the record stores and they would be like, sort of like when I'd go to the video stores later, they'd be like, hey, we got this new weird rap thing in, you should check it out because it's probably something you'll like. And yeah, so I found the Ghetto Boys back before Scarface was Scarface, back when he was like Action or whatever his name was back then. So I've always liked them. Funny story, my friend Chris Bickle, who's a filmmaker in one of the Carolinas, I can't remember if it's South or North, I think it's South. He actually went to a Ghetto Boys show a couple years ago and got on stage and hung out with Willie D and the guys. And I'm like, damn it, that should have been me. So yeah, I love the Ghetto Boys. They're great. Probably my favorite Southern rap act, honestly, because I don't like a lot of the Atlanta stuff or any of that came later. So, and they were kind of like, very early in the gangster game. So it was a great group. Jonathan, is R-rated horror is hard to find now. Your thoughts? Yeah. So I think it's the same problem we always run into with R-rated films, that they would prefer to make everything PG-13 because, especially with horror, because it tends to appeal to a younger demographic. And so if you cut out the under 17 kids from your horror movie, you're not going to get as many adults. And if you cut the kids out, that affects your box office. And R-rated films just don't seem to do as well globally as the PG-13 stuff. And so I think we just end up, with a lot of PG-13 films now. In a lot of ways, the PG-13 rating was probably a mistake because you kind of gave people this middle ground that I think we'd have just been better off without. Like, I think you just either it's PG or it's R. Let's not do this middle ground thing, and again, nobody can ever define what exactly makes something a PG versus a PG-13 versus an R. And I always think about the John Landis thing where he's like, the difference between a PG and an R is like, in a PG, you can like chop off a breast, but it's an R if you show the breast, like just show a naked breast. And that's kind of been my experience over the years with it. Like sometimes you see movies that are PG-13 that you're like, how they get away with that? And then I see ones that are R and you're like, why was this an R? So I think the MPAA is a terrible organization. And I tend to always go back when I talk about them to Wes Craven's quote when he had all that trouble with Deadly Friend. And he said, about the basketball to the head scene, he said, like, we sent it over there and they sent it back and said, there's no way we can pass this, blah, blah, blah. It's an X. And he said, but in The Omen, you passed as an R. The guy gets his head clean chopped off, like full detail, completely chopped off by the pane of glass. I think it's David Warner. How do you justify that? And they literally told him in a letter in print, he had proof that they said this. Well, we don't really have any hard and fast rules about this. It's kind of just the mood of the room at the time. So meaning like if you showed up on the wrong day, you might get an X for something that on another day, if they were in a good mood, could have been a PG-13. So I don't think that's any way to run an organization that determines who gets to experience someone's creative output. And that's not even talking about the money involved, right? Like there's a big difference. Again, if you have an R, you are probably not going to make as much at the box office as a PG-13 will. So I've always been sort of endlessly fascinated that they would just come out and admit that we don't really know what we're doing. We just kind of make it up as we go along. And to me, that's definitely an organization that has too much power if they can do that and say it publicly and continue to do it. And there's like no outrage about it. So, all right, let's see if I miss it. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many chats. I cannot read them all. I would love to read them all. So, Johnny, I wore the show out on cassette 3 to 4 times on my track. Yeah, dude. Everybody got sick of me playing that song. I was like, but man, it's Inspector Gadget. So yes. All right, let's see here. I know I missed one up here. 8-Ball and MJG, I never got into them. I don't dislike them, but I'm not like a super fan of them. And Gangster Nip, yeah. Yeah, I've been around hip hop for a long time. Like, and the funny thing is, like, you know, I knew a lot of the guys back in the day because, you know, we hung out with the Digital Underground guys before they got famous. Like, they were here. I hung out with, you know, Shock and Kenny and all those guys. So if you want some classic horror rap, you got to go with like the Gravediggers. So you get RZA, you get Too Poetic, rest in peace. You get Faruquan from Stetsasonic, and I forget who the other guy is in there now, and I'm so embarrassed that I can't remember that. Yeah. Scott, just watched your video commentary on Beyond Evil. To me, that's probably is your best video. Well, thank you. Nobody liked that video other than you. That video bombed so bad. I thought for sure that one would do better given who was in it. Yeah, PG-13, Poltergeist, Second Indiana Jones. Yeah, they were kind of in this weird spot, like where they didn't want to piss off Spielberg, and like giving him an R was going to be bad. The studios were going to be unhappy if they gave him an R on those films, and so yeah, the PG-13 was kind of the compromise. And I mean, it's funny if you think about it because Jaws is rated PG. And think about Quinn's death in Jaws, or, you know, the guy in the estuary, Ted Grossman in the boat where you see his leg. Like, that's some pretty hard stuff for a PG, but we all survived, right? I don't think we really needed PG-13. I think we knew, like, that if we made it through Jaws and nobody was, like, ruined for life, that we probably would have survived Temple of Doom and Gremlins. Jonathan, I also watch Brandon Tenold. You both are great. You guys talk. He does a lot of Godzilla. Also some good horror movie. Good horror, the movie The Ape. That's a great ripoff. Yeah, I watch Brandon all the time. Brandon is one of those guys I really like. He's very funny. I don't talk to him hardly ever. Not because I wouldn't talk to him. We're just not nobody's ever formally introduced us. And every once in a while I'll tweet at him. And sometimes he'll answer and sometimes he won't. And that's totally fine. We did have a funny thing because someone gave me shit at one point for doing something he had done. And I had tweeted about it. And I said, "Oh, sorry, Brandon. I guess I just fucking ripped you off again." And he's laughing because he's like, "Yeah, it's like Highlander. There can only be one movie review of each movie." So I was like, oh, good. But yeah. I do like him a lot. Yeah, he does a lot of Godzilla stuff, which is cool. Godspeed to him, man, because that Toho is rough for the copyrights. Like, I fight a lot of copyright stuff, but fighting anything from Japan is like pain in the ass, man. Like, they're crazy. Ape, that's a great ripoff. Yeah, I love ripoffs. I love all these Alien ripoffs and all the Jaws ripoffs. But the worst, I don't know. It's like, shit, man. There's so many terrible ones. I think I think you got to go with like something in the Terminator realm. Like, for as much as I love Lady Terminator, it's a terrible ripoff of Terminator. I think, that one. I think Robo War with Predator and Terminator. That's another terrible one that I love, but yeah, so this is a tough question to answer off the top of my head. I really have to think about that one. Depressed Canadian, do you think that because there are so many streaming outlets, both free and paid for, to stream super cheap movies, that B movies don't resonate like they did on home video or cable in the 80s and 90s? No, and I'll tell you why. Your point is right to my thinking, that B movies do not resonate like they did in the 80s and 90s. I think the problem is not that there are too many streaming outlets and that it's too cheap. I think the problem is that we have raised a generation of indie filmmakers who, how can I say this without being a jerk? We've raised a generation of indie filmmakers, right? And the barrier to entry to making a movie now is way lower than it was in the 80s. So in the 80s, you had to find money because even a terrible B movie was going to cost you 6 to 7 figures, right? Now with technology, and especially now with all this YouTube shit, everybody's got all these fancy cameras and lights and studios and microphones and streaming setups and all this stuff. You can buy a camera to make a movie that will get onto Netflix for what, like $5,000? I think you can buy a Sony FX3, which is Netflix approved, for like $5,000. I mean, you still have to buy lenses and all the other crap that goes with it. But this is in comparison to even just a couple years ago when you had to buy like a Panasonic Red, which was like a $10,000 camera. So now you're getting into this, like you can buy the equipment to make a movie and then edit it yourself and all that. And again, not Hollywood standard, but B movie standard, for less than you can buy a car. And so that's great. I'm all for the democratization of creativity. I think everybody should be able to make things if they want to make things. So I don't have a problem with that. But what happens is the same thing you see in book publishing now, where Kindle Direct came out and opened the floodgates to where anybody can publish a book. And so that's great. Everybody should be able to publish a book if they want. But most of the books are terrible because the people writing them are not actually writers. They're just people trying to fulfill a creative dream to write a book or make a movie. And in film, I think what we see, my experience with the indie scene, and I've seen a lot of it, is that we have a lot of guys today who want to make B movies that are blatantly trying to ape the stuff they loved in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that's great because that's very fertile ground, right? The problem is that a lot of these guys make movies that ape the things they loved, but they don't bring anything new to the table. And all they really get is like, well, I understand that I loved Carpenter's synths, so my movie will be a great B movie if I put a synth score in it like Carpenter. That's all I need to do. Like anything else can suck, but this will sell it. Or I like Suspiria lighting, so I'm going to put these lurid lights in every scene so everybody knows it's an homage to Argento. And it's like, that's great. But those films you're talking about also had inspirations, but those guys had more to say than just like, oh, hey, let me just mimic what Carpenter did or what Sam Peckinpah did, or in Carpenter's case, what Howard Hawks did. Like, Carpenter was a huge Howard Hawks fan. Most of his films owe something back to Howard Hawks, but when you look at them, you're not thinking, oh, this guy's just ripping off Howard Hawks. But when I look at a lot of these indie guys, I'm like, oh, this guy's just trying to riff on Carpenter or Argento or Fulci or whoever, and they don't bring anything new to the table. And that's the first problem. That's the big problem. The other problem that I see all the time is that the technology is cheap and it's really good, right? The cameras are great. You can really make, like, shit, man. I see shit on YouTube that's made with like 4K cameras that looks like TV quality, and that it's made in someone's bedroom. Not this show, but other people's shows. It's really interesting that technology has gotten cheap and it's gotten exponentially better. And so I think the other problem is that you try to make an indie film now and they look too nice. Like these B movies they make now look too polished. You look at some of the stuff I cover, from the 80s, there's grain in it. It's not, there are scenes out of focus, like there's all kinds of weird, or Sledgehammer where you can literally see the guy drinking a beer in the shot from the crew. Like those things, are sort of magical. And they just don't happen in these modern films because everything's too polished. And I think that's kind of the bigger problem with those. So I don't think it's the streaming. I mean, the streaming is definitely a problem in that there's such an insatiable need for movies now that people just try to crank something out to get it on Netflix or to get it on Hulu or wherever. And so you don't always get the best work there. But I think like my thought has always been that the problem is that the technology is so cheap now that we have people, anybody can make a movie, and you don't have to have any skill, and that's fine. I'm not saying you should, I'm not trying to gatekeep filmmaking. I want people to go out and explore their creativity and make things. But I think like a lot of times that these guys make these movies, they're too polished and they don't really understand why they love the movies they're trying to imitate so much. And so everything comes across as sort of superficial and surface level. They don't really get what made, Carpenter's films compelling or Argento's films compelling. They just understand that, oh, these lights everybody talks about, or this synth score and Panaglide and, like Dean Cundey cinematography. And like, those are just facets of what made those films special. But again, that could send me off on a whole tangent about the lack of, media literacy now that we see that like nobody, if you spend 10 minutes on Twitter now, you'll see people talking about things, shows, movies, books that they profess to love, that as soon as they start talking about it, it's clear that they didn't really understand any of the, the deeper things in those stories. Like people are less like, I like Game of Thrones because I like the Red Wedding. And it's like, well, that's a great scene, but there's a lot more going on in that show than just this one thing. So, but again, I don't want to get off on being like like I'm a snob or gatekeeping or trying to, keep people from creating. I absolutely want people to make things. I just wish that some of us would take more time to think about why we love the things we love, what it is we really love about them. And if we're going to try to make something that pays homage to that, which I'm all for, we should absolutely figure that out before we do it. Every time I come on a live stream, I'm like, what am I going to say tonight that's going to get me canceled? So Charles Babbage, thank you so much. I was wearing a Hell Yeah Danny shirt at work and my boss asked who it was. Explaining the movie to him while he had this blank look on his face was the highlight of my day. Keep up the good work. I got to tell you guys, I fought to the nail against doing merch. Like I was like, man, I'm like, merch is a great way to spend a lot of money to make no money, in my experience. Like every guy I talked to who had merch was like, oh yeah, we were told this would be such a great ancillary income stream for our creative work and that, fans would buy it, blah, blah, blah. And then we put it out there and nobody bought anything. And so we'd spent a bunch of money to make merch that nobody bought and that we ended up sitting on. And so my attitude was like, well, I only have so many hours in the day, right? So I don't want to spend it. If I could spend it making videos, I would like to do that. But if I'm going to spend it making merch, the merch has to make money. It has to do something, right? It can't be a money loser. Everything with the show, and this always kills me that people get pissed at me about this. The show is a business for me. Like this, it costs money to make. It costs time to make, and it costs a lot of money to make now because I have Jay and I'm me and I have to buy all this stuff. And I have never done this to get rich, right? But some guy got on my ass like a couple weeks ago because in the Hellraiser 2 video, at the end, I made a joke about like, normally I'd tell you to go watch my Hellraiser video, but I'm not going to tell you to go watch that because they demonetized it. So I don't make any money from it. So go watch this instead. And it was a joke because by mentioning the Hellraiser video, people were going to know it existed and were going to go watch it. And plus they were going to go watch The Void, which is what I actually kicked to. So I would get some pennies out of that too, right? I wasn't going to get anything out of Hellraiser, but you could go watch it. And he gave me this shit about like, well, I'm such a sellout. I'm only in it for the money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, this is my full-time job. Like I left marketing in December of 2022. I left my job to do this. And not the best time to have done that, but it's been fine. We've survived. Things are okay. And this channel this show was never going to make me rich. Like I'm not dead meat. I'm not going to get 6 million subscribers anytime soon. And I don't appeal to a young enough demographic to get 6 million subscribers. You guys are all old like I am for the most part. So it's never been something that I did because I thought it was going to make me super fabulously wealthy. Like if I wanted to be super fabulously wealthy, I got 10 other businesses I'd have started that would have worked. Or I'd have gone into consulting because I know a lot about marketing and making people money. But at the same time, like, I have a mortgage, I have to eat. These things cost money to make. And so, you know, I just go into every video like, I just need this to like break even. Like, as long as I don't lose money on things, it's okay. Like, if you start having videos where you're not even making enough to cover the cost of production, at some point you have to go like, this isn't a sustainable thing anymore. Like, this is now a hobby. And if it's a hobby, I have to get a job, and this takes second seat to, you know, weightlifting and my job. So yeah, so I've never been like super hung up on everything making a bunch of money. I just want it not to lose me money, which seems totally reasonable. But of course, the internet, you'll find some guy who will tell you you're an asshole for doing that you shouldn't make any money. You should just throw all your money away to make art or whatever. And that's great, except that I've done this for 25 years and it's how I make a living. So yeah, so the merch. But it's been funny to make that merch because it doesn't sell like crazy well. We sell some. We sold a lot in the beginning, and then it obviously cooled down, and I haven't had time to make new stuff. One of the keys of it is you have to keep making new stuff, and that's not my focus. Like, all my focus is making new merch is very far down on the list. Like, if I can make videos or podcasts or whatever, that's a better use of my time than designing merch. And getting someone to design it costs me more money, and it doesn't make enough to justify it. But the funny thing about that is seeing people buy Hell Yeah Danny shirts and then take pictures of them wearing them in public in cool places. Like, one of our viewers took one to Italy and took a picture of him wearing it outside of Profondo Rosso, the Argento store in Italy, where Luigi Cozzi works as the manager, before he went in and hung out with him all day. So he hung out talking to Luigi Cozzi in Argento's store wearing a Hell Yeah Danny shirt. So that to me is totally worth all the headache of launching the merch. And I'm always like, nobody knows who this is. Always the funny thing is, like, I go to these cons and we have those shirts and they're always on the table, and people walk by and they don't know who I am, but they kind of figure it out from the banner that I'm a YouTuber or whatever. And then they look at those shirts and they're like, who is this? And I'm like, if you have to ask, I don't know what to tell you. You're not part of the tribe. So, but yeah, it's very cool to see people wear them. And like, I geek out anytime somebody sends me a picture of them and you don't even have to go anywhere famous. Like, you could just be like, if you're just at the mall wearing it and there's a picture, tag me in it, because I totally geek out over it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool and weird and funny that people are wearing this shirt. And I'm always like, I bet people look at that and wonder, what the hell what is that even about? Helena, thank you. Any movies you've had to revisit to appreciate? Yes, many. The one that comes to mind right off the top of my head was The Void. So The Void was interesting in that it came out in 2016 or whatever, and it was this so you know, like I said, I've written for like every major movie website at some point in my career. And so, like, I'm friends with a lot of other film journalists and critics and things like that. And so I don't go to the festivals or any of that anymore. I used to go to all the premiere screenings here and, you know, the press screenings and stuff. And I don't want to do it. But they all still go. And the thing I found is that with my friends, when they go to a festival and see a film before everyone else sees it, there's this tendency, because they're seeing it before everyone else sees it, to really like latch on to it as this like incredible experience, and they're excited about it. And I get it. Like, you should not do this job if you're not excited about movies. And if it's not, like, this is one of those things, and I know this has been a controversy this week with the Chris Stuckman, Madam Web thing, which I wish I didn't know about, because why do I need to know about this? But I do. And people got on him because he's like, well, I'm a critic, but I don't want to be negative about this film because I know how hard it is to make a movie, blah, blah, blah. Well, first off, as a critic, your job is to be critical. So, like, your job is to be critical. You can be critical in a nice way. There are plenty of guys online who are doing this gig now who are critical dicks, right? Like, they're only in it to tee off on things they don't like and to, you know, like, it's more important to make a funny joke at someone's expense than to actually tell you something useful about a film. And I get it. I get that he has a problem with that. I have a problem with that. Like, if you're going to do this as a career, you should love movies. You should want movies to be good. Like, I never want a movie to suck. You know, there are movies I don't want to see because they're not for me, but I don't want any horror movie to suck. I wish they were all fantastic. It's not realistic, but I go into them all wanting them to be good. So The Void was a great example of this sort of opposite side of that coin, the relentless positivity mantra that some of these guys really want to harp on, that if you don't have anything nice to say about a movie, you shouldn't say anything. And that's bullshit too. Like, again, critic, your job is to be critical. You know, when I was a young writer and workshopped, we went through a process called PQP, and it was praise, question, polish. And so every critique was designed to, the first thing you hear when your work is being critiqued is something that the person liked about it. Then you might hear something that they had a question about, like, why did you do this way? Or why did you make this choice? Or why didn't you do this? Or what was the thought process here? And then the last thing is like the actual critical part, polish. Here's what I think doesn't work. Maybe, and you're free to take that information and make something better or tweak it or whatever, or ignore it completely because it's your work. But there's all three phases in there. There's a praise, there's a question, there's a polish. And that's always been my sort of philosophy about reviewing film, books, video games, whatever I've done in my career, is that there's always something positive to say. It may not be many things. It may be, you may have to dig to find it. But you should say something nice, and then you should maybe question some decisions, and then you should say, like, okay, instead of telling the filmmaker how to polish it because you're a critic, he's not going to read it. The film's made. He can't really do anything about it. But you can say, these are the things I had issue with. These are the things I think don't work, or here's what I think might have worked better, or what I don't get. And so The Void was the opposite, where these guys go, and because they're seeing it at a press screening and it's like a big deal for them, like, this is a whole other can of worms. I'm not going to go down that, but they would go see it. And so they come out and they're excited about it. And they're like, oh, this is so great, so great, so great. And so you hear like, oh, this is so great. And so they're hyping it up, and nothing can ever live up to the hype, like after they've hyped it up to hell and back. And that was The Void. So they were like, oh, well, you're going to love The Void. It's gory and it's Lovecraftian. And I'm like, yeah, these are all my boxes, right? Like, these are all things I'm into. But the reality is that when I saw it, I'm like, well, yeah, it has gore. Yeah, it's Lovecraftian. Yeah, it's in my wheelhouse, but the story doesn't go anywhere. How did we watch this movie and go, no one went, hey, the effects are cool and the idea is cool, but when we get to the polish stage or the question stage, why didn't this story go? Why doesn't it actually go anywhere? Like, ending with the ripoff of The Beyond is not really going anywhere. And so, so that was one that I came into, and I came into it with like expecting a lot more than what I got. And then for years I was like, oh, this movie, like, I don't know why you guys talk about this movie like so crazy praising it all the time. I'm like, it's fine as a practical effects piece, but as an actual story, it kind of sucks. And so Jay and I were literally just talking about this yesterday. I went back and watched it for the show because I'm like, I know this is a 5 barf bag movie, so I should do it. And the second time through, I appreciated it a lot more because I had not, I went into it knowing how it was going to go. So I could go like, oh, this story is going to suck. It's not going to go anywhere. But the effects are going to be great, and the gore is going to be super, and the Lovecraftian vibe is great. So it was easier to have fun with it. And that's the one that always pops into my head that I like a lot more. Another one that I didn't like the first time that I've come to appreciate more was Natural Born Killers. And I did not care for Natural Born Killers at all the first time I saw it. I come around on it more. The other really big one is House of a Thousand Corpses. That was another one where, zombie, we heard about that film for forever and it never would come out and it would never come out. And then, but everybody who would see it would like hype it up to hell and back. Right. And so you're like, oh God, I knew even then, like, there's no way this movie is going to live up to the hype in my brain if it ever comes out. And sure enough, when I saw it the first time, when it finally came out, I thought, oh, the first half of this is pretty interesting. The second half is totally weird and feels like a whole different movie, and I don't care for it. So, but as I have gone back to that one over the years, I like it more each time I revisit it. I'm not even really sure why. I just think like something about it just works better as I've gotten older. I don't know if it's because I'm different or what, but yeah, those are some right off the top of my head. There are quite a few actually, which is really weird that I'm sort of like open to that, because a lot of people are like, if I see a movie and I hate it, I'm not ever going to go back and see it again because I hated it, right? But sometimes I'm like, but I feel like there's something there. Like maybe I would like it if I saw it 3 years later or something like that. So I'm always very willing to do that. And I do change my mind on stuff. Like, we were just talking about things I would go back and re-rate just even on sick flicks. Like, why did I not give Deathgasm 5 barf bags? Why did I not give Terrifier 5 bags? And it's because like in the beginning, I was stingy with 5 bags. So I was afraid if I give out too many 5 bags, people will not be interested. So I need to make those more rare. And now I'm like way more liberal with those. So Depressed Canadian, are there any mainstream movies that aren't traditionally considered horror that you would count as a horror movie? Yes. Terminator, Temple of Doom, and RoboCop come to mind. For me, it's Jaws. Like, there's still this huge debate. Like, sometimes people, it's like Die Hard being a Christmas movie. People will occasionally argue with you about Jaws not being a horror movie. And I'm like, Jaws is absolutely a horror movie. It's about a giant monster eating people. Like, that's horror 101 shit right there. Like, at its core, it's about a monster that eats people. So I don't know how you get much more horror than that, but that one, some of the other ones, there are a bunch and I'm just blanking. I just had another one in my head and now I can't think of what it was because I got sidetracked with Jaws like always. But yeah, there are quite a few. And this is the funny thing, because this is what I tell people all the time, like horror is a genre, but like horror is a transcendental genre, because you will find horror in all kinds of different kinds of movies that aren't classified as horror. There are horrifying things that happen in, obviously action films and thrillers, but even sometimes romances, dramas. So yeah, I think horror is both a useful categorization tool, but I also think it's also a limiting thing, like, because horror is bigger than just what we think of as horror cinema with haunted houses and zombies and vampires and that. Like, horror is like, really, it's like love. It's one of those transcendental emotions that you just can feel anywhere in any kind of story. So I hope that answered that. I'm sorry I didn't have more examples. I'll be in bed in an hour and I'll be like thinking of 10 movies that would answer that question better. But that's me. Debbie, thank you. How dare you want to break even? I know, right? Like, man, this is what I've learned this year. And it's dumb that it's taken me 5 years to learn this, but like, you just can't please everybody. And there are days on YouTube where you can't please anybody. And so I used to get really kind of down about that sometimes. Like, I don't want to annoy people, especially people who are subscribers or, things like that. Like, if you like me enough to subscribe and you're like, I want more of this, I want to give you what you want, right? But sometimes people are just so goddamn petty about things. And like, this idea that I shouldn't be allowed to make money off my work is just so absurd to me. Like, this is a tough job, man. Like, I tell people all the time, like, YouTube is not just go sit in front of a camera and talk and people throw money at you. Like, to get to that point, like, you have to do a lot of work and it's hard. You have to build an audience. You have to build a channel. You have to learn to be on camera. You have to learn how to film things. You have to learn how to light things. You have to learn how to edit. You have to learn how to market. YouTube is like 15 jobs for one person, for me, like that I have to be like competent at to make it work. And again, like I say, would I love the channel to make me rich? Absolutely. If the channel, but is the channel ever going to make me rich? Probably not. And I'm okay with that. As long as it's not putting me in bankruptcy to make this stuff and have to keep buying cameras and lenses and computers to edit on and all this stuff. As long as we break even, I'm fine. I'd like to break even and make a little bit of money. That's it. And like, if you get mad at me about that, I don't know what to tell you except go watch someone else, because I'm not going to like go bankrupt to make videos. So, and if you think I am, I don't think you're in touch with reality. So, oh, Jonathan, why do so many Italians use pseudonyms? Girolamo. Yes, because so sometimes that was by design. Sometimes they decided to do that and pick their pseudonyms. Vincent Dawn, Bruno Mattei, D'Amato picked a lot of his. And sometimes that was producers or distributors in other countries doing that. So the reason it happened so much with the Italians was because there was this feeling that if you showed a horror movie in the southeast of America called The Seven Doors of Death, and it was directed by a guy named Lucio Fulci, that Americans would go, I'm not going to see that. That's some foreign crap. But if you made it by a guy named Louis Fuller, then you could fool people into thinking, oh, this is just some American B movie. So I'll totally check that out. It's not foreign at all. And that was really it. They just wanted to, there was a fear that audiences in America would not watch foreign films. And if it had a foreign named director, that would indicate it was a foreign film. And so they just wanted to knock that off, head off that problem at the pass. And so that's what they did. And it's like the same thing with the shooting, the dubbing. Like, people always ask me, well, why would they dub Alice Cooper in Monster Dog? Because he speaks English. And the reason for that was because they shot those films with no sound. And they shot those films with no sound because you would have an American actor in a scene, you might have a Spanish actor in a scene, you might have a German actor in a scene, and each actor is doing their lines in their language. So recording it, you'd have a scene that had English dialogue, Spanish dialogue, and German dialogue. So to head off that problem, they just went, we're going to film these with no sound, and we'll just dub them all in English when we're done. But what happened was that they would go into production and they would finish, and then the actors would leave and go off to do other projects. And by the time they got around to doing the additional dialogue recording, those people weren't available. So they'd get Ted Russoff or Edward Mannix or one of the other stable of Americans who did voice work for the Italians in to do all the characters. And that's basically why that happened. It was not any intentional subterfuge on that part. It was just a logistics issue that by the time they got around to recording the dialogue, the actors were usually gone. So they got somebody cheap to do it. And sometimes they would have to pay. Like, sometimes an actor would be like, well, if I have to do additional dialogue and come back, you're gonna have to pay me more. And so that would be more than paying like a Ted Russoff or an Edward Mannix to do it. So there you got two answers. You got an answer to a question you didn't even ask. How about that? That's like that's service right there. So the Ozone Nightmare. Hey Mike, been having a blast with your videos. 70s, 80s horror is just full of great stuff. Even the bad movies usually have something worth watching them for. Well, thank you so much for the super chat, and I agree with you. To me, the 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, that's like the 80s were the last golden age of horror cinema for me. I certainly like stuff from the 90s. I've certainly liked stuff from the 2000s. But the 80s, man, just so much weird shit. You can just tell, like, it was the era of Coke. And you can just tell because, everybody was just making crazy stuff. Like, I look at so many movies from the 80s and I'm like, man, there is no way you would get that financed today. Not a chance in hell anybody would make Life Force today, let alone a studio. They go like, this chick's naked for the entire movie. How are we going to ever get this in theaters? And who's going to come see this? And And the 80s, like you had the Canon guys and you had Corman and like you just had all these B movie guys who could get a couple $100,000 together and make a movie. And they were, surprisingly, when you look back at them, they're pretty good movies for what they had to work with. Like, you can certainly look at Canon stuff and say, oh yeah, this is crappy ninja movies. But when you think like, oh, they made this for like a couple $1,000,000, they're amazing. like, like now you can't make a Hollywood movie now for like under 50 million bucks. So that these guys got like crazy stunts and action sequences and special effects and all that for, you know, 2 million bucks. It's amazing. Like that was like the coolest thing about like some of the B movie Babylon episodes was like going back and seeing like they made Night of the Comet for like $750,000. Like you can't hardly buy a house for that anymore. Like depending where you live, like if you California, you probably can't buy a house for $750,000, but they made an entire movie with like Kelly Maroney and Catherine Mary Stewart, like real actors and like real cameras and all that shit. So yeah, I just, that whole era is just like amazing. And for me, this is funny because I have never talked about this, but like one of the challenges for me for doing any of these shows, but especially B Movie Babylon, was that B Movie Babylon was like wildly nostalgic for me because I would talk every episode about like how I found the movies, right? And it always was like something from being a kid or, you know, the TV guide stories or, you know, going to my cousin Kenny's or wherever and finding this stuff or going to my grandmother turning me loose in video stores. And like some weeks, like Highlander, I ended up like depressed after I made those episodes because I was like, this was my childhood and this was such a magical time for me. And these films were such an integral part of that magic. And that's gone. It's never coming back. We will never live through the 80s again. Like that film world will never be back. Those kind of films will never be back. That whole vibe will never be back. And that's sort of like realizing that you're getting old and as you get older, like the world gets kind of stranger and stranger to you as you age because things move at a different pace than you're aging or your worldview evolves. And man, yeah. So like B Movie Babylon some weeks just like crushed me when I was done. I was like, oh my God, Highlander. Like I'm thinking about sitting in this living room at like 3:00 in the morning watching this movie and just like how fucking magical it was at the time. And even now when I think about it, like how incredible that was and just the realization that like, yeah, that's gone. It's not coming back. It's done. You have memories of it. That's all that's left. And yeah, so it kind of bummed me out a little bit. B Movie Babylon was bumming me out a little bit. That was another thing I had to go back to kind of on the drawing board on, like, how can I do this show without making myself like despondent every week with nostalgia and sorrow for the passage of time in my life. I'm so weird. Sloppy Joe, thank you so much. Thanks for turning me on to a lot of movies I've missed over the years and all the laughs. Keep it up, man. I love it. Definitely going to keep it up. I try to always be honest with you guys. When I come on these streams, I'm very private about some things in my life and other things I am like super open about. And so like, I always like to be open about the show stuff, and I probably overshare a lot of times when I do these, cause usually it just turns into like a 2-hour session of me bitching about YouTube and how they screw me over all the time, which I've mostly avoided tonight. So kudos to me. Like I wanted to talk about like how hard last year was, especially the second half. And like, I'd never have made a secret about it. I just hadn't done a live. I hadn't talked about it publicly, but like there was a time last year where I legitimately thought about like, maybe this is just time to like do something else. And like everybody I know, my close circle of people I kind of talk to, and they all talk me out of it. And I'm glad, because like I like doing this. Like obviously it's a job, and there are days where it sucks. Every time I have to deal with YouTube's bullshit or some copyright bullshit, it sucks. And the comments are sometimes no fun. Every once in a while, they've been really good lately, so let's keep that up. My mental health does not need a lot of negativity right now. But yeah, but like I like to let people know, like I'm not shutting down the show, I'm not stopping, I'm not doing any of that. But like I like to say, like, look, there was a time last year where things were really like kind of shitty, and like there was a couple days where I thought like, well, maybe you should just go do something else or do another channel or do another show or whatever, because like this is not fun. And for me, at the end of the day, as long as it's fun, I'm going to do it. As long as it's fun and I break even. So yeah. So I'm glad, like, this is why I do it. I want people to find movies that they probably missed. And that's been a double-edged sword for me, because like on the one hand, it's great because I've cultivated almost 100,000 people who are interested in weird movies like I am. It's sometimes a little bit challenging for me because it's very hard to ever get a video or the channel to break out and have some kind of explosive growth, because beyond you 100,000, 89,000 of you who really love this weird, obscure shit, most people are like, I don't even know what that is, and that looks weird, and I don't have any interest in it. So, but for me, it's always been, like, since I started doing this in 1999 professionally, like writing about this stuff, it's always been about highlighting weird stuff that I love that people probably missed, because I spent my entire youth lurking around movie theaters and video stores and bookstores and comic shops looking for weird, cool shit. And like most people didn't do that, and so they missed out on stuff. And so my thing is always just like, I want to shine a light on this thing and like talk to the people who've seen it and love it the way I do, but also help new people find it and experience it and learn to love it too. So like the biggest thing in my career, like if I died tomorrow, the thing that would have made it all worth it for me is like, I've had so many people over the last 25 years come up and tell me like, I would have never discovered Italian horror. I'd have never known who Fulci and Argento and Michele Soavi and Joe D'Amato and all these guys were if you hadn't talked about them. And so for me, like, that's my Lord's work right there, is like getting people to see those movies and love them is as good as making $1 million a lot of days for me. So, so I'm glad I can do that. Weird Cinema, Mike, top 3 Italian cannibal films. I'm sure Cannibal Holocaust and Ferox are top 2, right? But what's the third? I used to not like it so much, but now I'm leaning towards Man from Deep River. Loved it on rewatch. This is an interesting question, only because here's a little inside baseball for you who are here. We have a cannibal film on the way, and it's not Man from Deep River, but it's its close brother, Jungle Holocaust, aka Ultimo Mondo Cannibale, aka Last Cannibal World, which is Diodato's sort of dry run for Cannibal Holocaust. And it has not come out because we got claimed on it as soon as it went up, which shocked the shit out of me, because usually the Italian stuff we don't get claimed on. And we got claimed by Minerva Pictures, who has claimed me in the past, but is generally like, as soon as I appeal, they release it within a day. And we're on now like day 18 of this appeal, and they have not released it yet. So they have 30 days to either release it or not. So I get the feeling we're probably going to go the 30 days. So the video can't come out until that gets resolved. I think revisiting that one, I would actually put that as my third. I think, because it feels like Cannibal Holocaust, but it's not as intense or quite as extreme as Cannibal Holocaust. Plus it's got like Mimi Lay in it, and it's got Ivan Rasimov in it, and that's kind of like cannibal staple stuff. But if it wasn't that one, I would go with like, obviously the other choice is Dr. Butcher MD, aka Zombie Holocaust, because that has the double whammy of zombies and cannibals, which might be the most perfect Italian film ever made. So yeah, I think though, I have not. Man from Deep River is one I have not seen in a while, and I have it here, and we're probably gonna do it this year. If not this year, probably 2025. Like, I'd really like to get through all the Italian Cannibal stuff just so I can say, like, here's a playlist. They're all done. Leave me alone. Go watch these. So it's funny though, because earlier we were talking about I only have like one video that's gotten over 500,000 views and none that have gotten to 1 million. The one that's gotten over 500,000 views is Cannibal Ferox, and the beautiful irony of that is I've never made a penny from it because it's been claimed the whole time and I never got it released. So my best performing video made me $0. Depressed Canadian, the most haunting line from The Simpsons is when Grandpa points at Homer saying it'll happen to you about getting older. Yes, boy, that line hits home a lot more now, let me tell you, because I'm seeing it firsthand. It's just funny because I look sometimes at, I don't ever go back and watch the old videos very often. It's painful. Like, I just look at them and I can't bear, like, I'm like, oh, that line delivery was terrible, or you missed this joke, or you fucked this up. And so I've rarely go back and watch them. But if you go to the channel page, like the new to the channel page is always the channel trailer, which I made like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's wild to me to look at how much redder my beard was. So I'm definitely getting older. Doug Russell, thank you so much. Horror Geek fans eating good tonight. Well, I hope so. Ozone Nightmare. I know what you mean about the 80s being gone, but what keeps me from getting down about it is we're in a golden age of re-releases with this stuff with like Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, etc. delivering them. Absolutely. Like, I cannot, it's really wild to me now because I'm excited to see that finally people are starting to turn on streaming as a way to like interact with media. I am a staunch advocate for physical media. Always have been. Video games, books, movies, music. I like when they pitch the idea of streaming, I'm like, oh, this has beautiful potential. Like, think about the fact that every movie a studio has ever made could be purchased through, like, you could view it instantly through the internet whenever you wanted. And then I was like, but they'll never do that because they're backwards and they won't understand the technology and they'll try to cling to this old distribution model, which is exactly what's happened. And so seeing guys like Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, Terror Vision, Radiance, all these boutique labels, I know there's an issue with like, hey, some of these things are exorbitantly expensive for physical media. I get it. As a guy who dropped almost $1,000 in the Black Friday sale at Severin to get all that Italian stuff, I'm right there with you on the pricing. But at the same time, they are really doing the Lord's work out there. Like, they're bringing out stuff that I never thought we would see on disc. The stuff that I had not seen since it had been on crappy old VHS tapes, and that seemed just impossible that we would ever get on it. Like I just watched Raiders of the Living Dead. Like, if you'd have put a gun to my head and said, do you think this will come out? We're going to shoot you if you're wrong. I would have bet my life that I'd said, no, this will never come out. And I'd have been confident I'd have lived and died of old age, and I wouldn't have because it came out. So, getting Cemetery Man in 4K, it's great because a lot of this stuff is more accessible than it's been in a very long time. And I'm super happy about that. So that is an upside for sure. George Hellman, thank you. The great thing about this channel is not only learning of things I missed, but being reminded of ones I forgot or only vaguely knew, like Cruel Jaws. Well, that's good. I like to hear that. Cruel Jaws is that's a good one. I think a lot of people probably found Cruel Jaws through my channel, which makes me very happy because that is something that has to be seen to be believed, and that I could share that cinematic magic with you just makes it all worthwhile for me. So Jonathan, bringing your grandchild on was great. I'm 40, not as old as you, but I understand your feelings while watching B-movie Babylon. I'm a huge movie nerd. Sci-fi and horror remind me of my late dad. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry about your dad. And Yeah, so that's it. Like having Sterling on was great. I wish he was still here because I put him on every week. That kid is just too much, and I, I'm weird because I'm an introvert and I'm not like a super necessarily touchy feely emotional guy. I'd rather gouge my eyes out than talk about feelings other than like rage maybe. But that kid is I never knew what like unconditionally loving something was. Like I've unconditionally loved pets, but like people, I had never quite experienced that. Where you just loved something so much that you would literally do anything for it, even if it was to your own detriment for them to have something. And having a grandkid has been that for me, which is totally alien. And I have not come to terms with feeling that way yet. But yeah, that kid is just like, I tell them all the time, I'm like, if you go to daycare and any kid gives you shit, you just tell them your grandfather is stronger than their dad and their grandfather, and we're not taking anybody's shit. So I'll punt those kids into the sun for you if I have to. So, but yeah, it's fun. Like it's fun to remind people of things they miss. That's how part of it for me is like, I'm glad that I can give people a little nostalgia trip and, you know, take you back or help you find new things. That's really like always been the goal for me. So I'm glad it's working. But yeah, B-movie, depressing, man. That's the first time. This is the first time I've ever talked about that publicly. Like I literally, Highlander broke me, man. That was a hard episode to do because I love the movie so much and I wanted to get it right. I really wanted it to be great, and it was great, I think. And then it didn't do well, which crushed me a little bit because I'm like, man, this is a movie I adore and it's so important and it's such a big important movie of the 80s, and I busted my ass to make this good, and like people are kind of like, you know, it's Highlander, everybody knows it. And then like just the whole like Highlander was the worst also because thematically it's about loss and all of that. So it was like a double whammy for me. And it just like, I like, after that was done for like 3 days, I totally went off my diet and just ate junk food because I was just eating my feelings. And it was just like, it was not a good time. It's a great episode, but like I suffered for that art. Dark Hierophant, thank you. Review Men Behind the Sun, Threads. We're never doing Threads, man. Everybody does Threads. Nobody will fucking care if I do Threads. We'll do Threads and it'll get 10,000 views because Spooky just did it, or you know, like everybody's done that. Men Behind the Sun, I bought the Blu-rays because I wanted to do it. I don't know how that will ever work though, because I don't think YouTube is going to let me show enough from that to make it work in Sick Flicks format. I think Men Behind the Sun is one that will probably go to Deep Cuts or B-Movie Babylon. I think it would be easier there for me to stay out of trouble. So, but I did buy that one for that very I actually bought all three when Massacre just put them out. I waited like 3 years to get them. But they did finally release them, and I have them. Obviously I've seen them all before, but yeah, I do have plans to do that one. Violence Jack is interesting. I hadn't thought about that one. I have to put that one on the list. I have to do a little research and see how it would do, but that one might happen. Threads is like, and I'm sorry, I wasn't saying like I'm not going to do Threads like being a jerk. It might have come across that way. I didn't mean it to come across that way. I'm just that Threads is one that I see so many guys do, and every time I try to do one of those, we get the shaft on it. So I just watched Spooky's video on it like last week, and I thought he did a nice job with it. And I just was like, shit, man, I'm probably never gonna do this. I'd probably maybe do the day after tomorrow before I do Threads, because I don't think anyone covers that one, even though Threads is better. So. Horror Orman, new to the channel and love it. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Welcome aboard. I've been here 5 years. There's a lot of videos here. If you like one of my videos, it's a pretty good bet that you'll at least tolerate the rest, because they're all the same. Different movies, but the same premise. So if the dad jokes and puns don't put you off on the first one, you're probably good for almost 300 of them. So But I'm glad you found me, because one of the things this year has been, since late last year, the struggle has been YouTube has just really stopped pushing me to newer audiences. So we get most of the views come from people who are already subscribed to the channel, which is nice on the one hand, because that means people subscribe and they're interested and they subscribe because they wanted more. But it makes it hard to kind of grow the channel because we're just not getting pushed out to people who hadn't found us or subscribed yet and all that. So it's like a double-edged sword thing. Like, it would be nice to, and sometimes I'm like, well, I'll make a video that should maybe go out to a wider audience, but then those never do well, and then they never get pushed to a wider audience. So I've just kind of given up on that, but we'll just get where we get. We'll get to 100K this year, I hope. Turtle Wars, thank you so much. I look forward to watching your videos every week. Always appreciate your reviews of the weird shit we love, and of course your humor. Thanks for all for what you're doing. Sorry, I can't read. Reading is fundamental, and I failed. Thank you. I'm glad that people have come every week, man. That's what really blows me away is, 5 years in, we've been doing this, and I do the premieres, and every week, like 300, 400 of you show up, and it's a lot of the same people every week. And that's just like, I'm super touched by that people not only care enough to show up and support me and watch what we're doing and like it, but that you guys have stuck around, man. Like, the internet, 5 years is like 5 million years in the real world. So I really thought when I started that, like, oh God, by 5 years, my YouTube career will be done. I'll be as old as Jesus on a dinosaur at that point in internet years, right? And but no, it keeps going, and it's nice because I know, like, a lot of guys want to make a viral video and blow up to 1 million subs overnight and blah blah blah, but I never really cared about the idea of having 1 million subs because I think it would be too much noise. I think it would be too many voices all at once for me, and like, part of the fun of doing this for me from the beginning has been that I try to be very accessible and interactive with the people who watch me. I try to respond to comments. I read comments. I do these live streams, although I've been bad about it. I'll try to be better. So yeah, it's really cool to, see that people have stuck around, and we've built like an actual community of people who love these movies or want to learn about them or find them, or, and I'm just incredibly touched by all of that. So I just wanted to say that, and I suppose that's probably a good place for me to wrap up tonight because my voice is dying. Again, I just appreciate you all so much. Oh, hang on, we got a couple more. Oh man, I miss chats, man. Good Lord. that just popped up. It's like, oh, he's leaving. Here come a bunch of super chats. Let me go through these. All right. Lightning round. Amy Ramirez, thank you so much. Hi, Mike. I've been a fan of this channel since I was 17. I really enjoy your channel. Not many girls would be interested, but I love it. Thank you. I know you have been around for a long time, Amy, and I am super appreciative of that. And I joke all the time that this channel doesn't have enough girl viewers, but you have been one for a very long time, and I'm appreciative of that. Like, if you look at my channel demographics, this channel's viewership is like 92% dude. And then I'm like, well, it's probably because I make Tampax jokes all the time, which probably turns the ladies off. But I'm glad some ladies are here, Amy. I appreciate you. Trogception, how you doing, man? Mike, just made it after 1 hour on the phone with Comcast. Good Lord. How did you survive? How's it going? Just watched Dark Harvest and it was pretty good. I don't know. Dark Harvest, huh? I haven't seen that, I don't think. Comcast, an hour. You're a better man than me. I'd have screamed at someone long before then. Jonathan, could you do 1982's The Thing, or is it run into the ground by others too much like Threads? And what Carpenter film was your fave? Yeah, so... All right, another upcoming programming note for you guys, because you're here. You get the inside skinny when you show up to the live streams. So I have not done The Thing. We did do Prince of Darkness, and in 2 weeks, you're getting In the Mouth of Madness. So that's 2 of the 3 in the Apocalypse trilogy. I don't know that I will ever do The Thing, only because I love it. I love it. I could talk about The Thing for days. Like if we did like a deep cuts on The Thing, I could make like a 3-hour video on The Thing. Like who was The Thing, what everything means, you know, things you probably missed, all that stuff, right? I just think that it's one of those movies that it's so done on the platform, and my audience, you guys just probably would not gravitate towards it because it's so well known and so sort of overcovered at this point. So I'm not opposed to doing it. I would love to do it. I just don't know that I will do it or when. I'm sure at some point I might talk myself into it, though. Especially now, if I'm going to have done 2 of the 3, I feel like, oh, Jesus, you need to do the last one now, right? Just wrap it up. Favorite Carpenter film? This is always tough because it's Halloween. Halloween is my favorite, but I really love The Thing. I really love Big Trouble in Little China. I really love In the Mouth of Madness. I really love Prince of Darkness. But Halloween for me was the first, and so it's my favorite. And it's the one that had the biggest impact on me becoming the horror geek and my love of horror, because I saw Halloween way too young, and so it was like a sort of foundational experience for me as a kid. And so that one's always going to be my favorite. But picking a favorite Carpenter is like picking your favorite kid, man. There are lots of options, and it's not really fair to pick. They're all great. Except for maybe Ghosts of Mars. 42nd Street Matthew, how do you feel about Romero's Martin? And do you think you'd ever do a Sick Flicks episode of it? I think Martin is an underrated masterpiece. I think it might be Romero's most underrated masterpiece. I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's beautiful and haunting, and it's got this melancholy vibe to it, and it's just stunning. And the first time I saw it on VHS, I got to the end and immediately rewound it and watched it again. I love it to death. I just need to pick up the disc, and I would absolutely do a Sick Flicks episode on it. It's a little long, so I worry about that, but it's a fantastic film. Fantastic film. Definitely just like incredibly underrated. I'm glad people are finally kind of starting to discover it a little bit since it just got the release. But just a great little film. Really just wildly underrated in his filmography. Like, everybody talks about the zombie films, and I get it, but Martin is just something truly, truly special. So, Depressed Canadian, I got rid of a bunch of DVDs and replaced them with Blu-rays, but certain film sound mixes were completely changed with different sound effects, like the Terminator or the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Keep your old DVDs too. Yeah, I never get id of anything, man, for that very reason. I remember one of the Jaws versions that they put out on disc, like back in the DVD era, had like, it was weird because I've seen Jaws like 8 million times on like VHS, and I got this DVD, and like they had tweaked some of the sound mix on it, and I knew instantly, and it was like nails on a chalkboard. So yeah, I very rare for me to get rid of any book, movie, video game, album, even if I upgrade. And DVDs, I have been very, very committed to like just keeping them. Even, you know, like that's how I end up with like 75 copies of Halloween or Evil Dead, because I just, every one time a new one comes out, I buy it, but then I never get rid of the old ones. So for that very reason. So Parachute Pants, thank you so much for the $5. That's a cool name. Parachute Pants, that's good. Staghorn the Druid, Geek, would it be prudent for you to stream games like Chiller, Friday the 13th, and A Nightmare on Elm Street here on YouTube? I have thought about that, Staghorn. It would probably be easier to sell on Twitch. I do occasionally stream over on Twitch, just screwing around. Because I love video games and I love horror games. I don't know if anybody'd watch them over here or not. I've never gotten around to trying it. But and usually when I'm over on Twitch, I rarely play horror games over there. I'm not sure why. I just usually just play old easy stuff. I think because for me,
I have a hard time talking on stream and playing a game at the same time. So I tend to go over there and play things like Vampire Survivors or Phantasy Star Online, where I don't really have to pay attention too much and I can watch chat and still talk. But yeah, I would absolutely shit, man, I'd love to do a gaming channel in general, like a horror gaming channel, because I play all that stuff and love it. So Matt Florent, I know it didn't get a lot of views, but I love your review of Against the Dark. Your misery was hilarious. Thank you. I suffer for you guys sometimes. I say all the time that Against the Dark is the only time in the entire run of this show that I have done a movie that I actually hated. Every other movie we've done, I will make jokes about it being terrible or me being bored or whatever, but I legitimately have things I love about all of those movies I've done, except Against the Dark. And it's really funny because, I did Against the Dark, and then today I was over on Facebook, and, Facebook likes to give you, your memories, things you'd posted years ago or whatever on this date. And today's memory, one of them was something like, just finished the Against the Dark review. I hate my life. And it wasn't for the YouTube review. It was for when I reviewed it back in like 2009 for my website. So I had completely tried to put it out of my mind. And then I went, oh, I should do this on YouTube. And then immediately regretted it because it was a miserable experience. I watched that stupid movie at like 2x speed even. And Jesus, man, it was a chore even then. And then when you take it off 2x speed, Seagal is even slower. Parachute Pants. How about Dark Knight of the Scarecrow? I love Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. So that is another one I would like to do. It's not super gory because obviously it's a made for TV movie. But that was one like I've told this before, I'm sure. That was foundational for me because I remember the night it debuted in like October of 1981. And I had probably just turned 8 or 9 that year. If it was 80 or 81, I forget. And we had 2 TVs and we didn't have cable, and the TV upstairs didn't work very well. But me and my sister sat in the living room in the dark in October with that movie on and just scared the shit out of ourselves with it. And it's a really good movie. Like, if you've never seen it, you should definitely check it out. But I will absolutely try to get to it at some point. That one I'm curious. Like, I'm curious if that would be better for Sick Flicks or B Movie Babylon or Deep Cuts. Like, I would like to go back and watch it and kind of see like if I want to make jokes about it or if I'd rather just talk about how much it traumatized me as a child. Trog. The trauma movie for me was Cronenberg's Shivers at 11 years of age. Scarred me for life. Yeah, Shivers at 11. Yeah. This is the thing that always surprises me in the comments here is like when I certainly saw a lot of things way younger than I should have. But sometimes I see you guys say things that you saw, like the idea that some of you saw Demons at like 6 just blows my mind. I mean, I couldn't have because it didn't come out. I was way older than 6 by the time it came out, but just like, wow, what were your parents doing? I want to congratulate them because that's cool. Oh yeah, I watched Demons with my mom at 6. Like, I need to hang out with your mom. She sounds cool. My parents would have never let me do that. I had to go to grandma to do that stuff. So, but, all right, let me take one quick last stroll through here. I saw Aliens as a wee lad. Yeah, I saw Aliens young too. Aliens was traumatic. Yeah, I was 14 when Demons came. Demons was what, 86, 85? So I was 13 if it was 85, 14 if it was. So we're like the same age, Daniel. I saw Exorcist when I was 6. I'm like, how did you make it through Exorcist at 6, Hans? Because like, I think like super scary, right? For especially at 6, but then there were also those long periods of like, it's a serious drama. And I think like at 6, I'd have been bored to tears. So Nightmare Sisters was completely different for obvious reasons. Okay. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Let's see. Ragdoll, have you ever done a Sick Flicks dedicated to horror movies about killer dolls, toys, puppets? I have not done, that would be like a list episode. I would like to do more list episodes. The problem is that I never make them. There's a bigger problem. The first problem is I never make them. We tried that way back in the beginning. We did the exploding heads, which never did very well and got me in trouble. So yeah, there was that. But I would like to do more list videos. I think the issue for me, there are a couple issues right now. I worry a lot of times about adding too many shows to this channel because then you kind of fragment the audience. Like even with B-Movie Babylon and Deep Cuts, we had a little bit of that happening. Like there's people like who only came for B-Movie Babylon. There are people who only wanted Sick Flicks. There are people who only wanted Deep Cuts. And so when you put out a video and like the B-Movie Babylon crowd is smaller than the Sick Flicks crowd, but YouTube is comparing them all together. So in some ways it was probably hurting us a little bit, but I don't care because I didn't want to start a second and third channel for these other shows. I think they all fall under the same horror cult film umbrella, so they can all be on my channel as it is. But I do worry that like if you do those and then you start adding listicles and all of that, that we kind of dilute the audience too much. So I had thought about doing a list show, but I might, if I did, it might be its own channel. Like, cause I had some ideas about that, but, and then part of it is like, man, I just like, I'm at this weird space in my YouTube career where we're doing well, but to get to the next level is a scaling issue more than a creative issue. It's like, and so to scale, I need more people to work for me, but for more people to work for me, I need more money and I don't have the money to hire a bunch of people to work for me. So like, but I don't have any more hours. Like I've reached max hours that I can give. So like now you have to, like you're an entrepreneur and you've done your business and you do everything. And then suddenly you filled up 24 hours of the day. And if you want to get any bigger, you have to bring in more people to help offload some of your things so you can concentrate on what matters. And that's where I am. Like we need, like I could use another writer and another editor and all that, but and then I would be free to make more stuff and do all this stuff. But right now I can't take all of that on. So like I have a billion ideas for cool things, but just like I can't take them on because I can't devote the attention to them they would require to make them good. Sick Flicks and B-Movie were running me into the ground. And then if you add Deep Cuts on top of that, like that's like I'm tapped out. All right, guys, I think I got all the super chats. I hope. If I missed you, I'm so sorry. If I did miss you and didn't answer you, please tag me in a comment in the comments here and ask your question and I will answer it for sure. Because I seem to always miss at least one. Never intentionally, but I'm long-winded and I get off track. So my apologies if I did, and absolutely just put it in there and I will get to it tonight or tomorrow. Thank you as always for being here and hanging out with me. I'm sorry it's been 8 months since we've done this. I will try to make it not so long next time. I don't like to do them too often because that kind of makes them less cool. But I would absolutely not like to wait almost a year to do it again. Oh no, you took your girlfriend to see Snowtown. Oh my God. Did you warn her at least? That's a rough one. Hickory, I'm sorry you're late, man. I've been here 2.5 hours. Almost 3. But yeah, again, as always, thank you all for hanging out with me. Thank you for watching me. Thanks for the comments and the watching ads and supporting sponsors and all of that. It really is not an exaggeration to say that you guys are why I do this. I got a lot of hobbies, man. I could go do a million other things, but I do this because I love it. And I love the community we've built here. And I'm just incredibly, incredibly appreciative that anyone pays attention to my nonsense. So, Thank you all. Be safe. Have a good rest of your weekend. The last shark video keeps coming up on my feed. That one's a good one. Like look, the Italian Jaws ripoffs bring out the best in me. I don't know why. But yes, thank you all so much for being here. You guys are the best, and I will see you Wednesday for sure. I've got a video coming for you Wednesday, so I will see you there. Come to the premiere if you can make it. If not, just leave me a comment. I'm always around. All right, take it easy, guys, and have a good night.